So Radia and Adora Bunny are two large indie VTubers. They've got large assets, but they often collab together. Like, Adora would often tweet about Radia being like her sister, like her best friend. They were previously part of the same VTuber group, I believe. Now they're kind of like parting ways. Radia tweeted, "I never anticipated having to make a statement like this, but I can no longer bear living in fear of someone who once called themselves a sister. The abuse, isolation, harassment, and endangerment of my safety and distribution of my personal identity information has left me and everyone I care about physically and emotionally exhausted. I didn't want to put out a public statement. I do not like internet drama, and I try to avoid it like the plague. I'm speaking out now because every other attempt to get Adora to halt her attacks, correct the record, and reach an amicable end have failed. It has become clear that I'm not the only person she has wronged in this matter. I'm sorry to all involved that things have reached this point, that you were kept in the dark for so long. I'm beyond tired." So, trigger warning for those who are sensitive to S-side attempt, psychological abuse, doxing, gaslighting. Over the past 2 months, Twitch streamer and VTuber Adora Bunny has engaged in what appears to be a campaign of active slander and harassment against her former friend, fellow Twitch streamer, and VTuber Radia Active, for reasons that are known only to Adora and change with each telling. This campaign has been largely kept from public view and has relied almost entirely on the spread of malicious and fictitious rumors, veiled threats, and whispers in people's ear, especially larger, more influential members of the Twitch and VTubing community, in what appears to be an attempt to end the streaming career of Radia. The end result of this has been immense damage to Radia's mental health, personal relationship, career, financial situation, and a near loss of her life. Yeah, because she unfortunately attempted to take her life, which there's a segment on it in the Google Doc even. So this is kind of a summary. Since we're reading the entire thing, we don't need to read all of that. But just a quick note, because the doc changes perspective a lot. She made that document with a few people. So she wrote that document with the aid and support of both Digital Vagrant and Laser Pig, whom, without their aid, I would never have been able to, on my lonesome, do everything required to create a comprehensive document of just my situation. So basically, her statements are going to be in deep blue, and they're going to be on the first person, and everything from Laser Pig is in light green. The rest of the document is in black, is a collaborative work, so that's why it's on the third person. Laser Pig has acted, well, according to the document, as some kind of like moderator or like in the conflict, but it seems, well, from this Google document that he's largely taking Radia's side now. Doc is written by Laser Pig mostly. Digi is her BF for context. Okay, I didn't know. This is the table of content. Boom. It's a lot. It's a lot. And there's this. There's like a summary. There's a lot of summaries in the Google Doc. I guess it's fine if you don't plan on reading the entire thing, but since we end up reading the entire thing, maybe we don't need the summary. I'll just read through the summary first. So what has Adora done? Casually doxing Radia's name, background, and personal information to multiple uninvolved third parties in pursuit of her slander campaign. Authored the creation of a list of grievance, what could be referred to as a cancel document, which was both over-exaggerated and completely imagined/falsified, which she forwarded to outside parties as truth after doctoring them to remove anything related to herself. Arranged for an intervention under false pretenses, which was a poorly disguised cover to ambush Radia in a format she could not escape from and designed to maximize humiliation and mental anguish. Demanding Radia takes a forced break from streaming for an intentionally vague amount of time under the threat of being thrown out of Project Stim. This was the VTuber group they were in. Used incredibly flimsy justifications to prove Radia wasn't sorry as justification to force Radia out of Project Stim. She has engaged in deceptive and manipulative language to place all of the blame for the invented wrongdoing solely on Radia, while engaging in deliberate deception that she was doing this out of concern for Radia's well-being. Engage in a sustained campaign of slander across the content sphere to countless content creators, both mutual friends and an unknown number of uninvolved parties, attempting to paint Radia as a manipulative, greedy, content-rotted, and a compulsive liar that had falsified her entire history for malicious ends. Attempted and succeeded in isolating Radia from her entire social sphere and support network for the sake of making her learn her lesson for perceived slights and imaginary wrongdoings. Accused Radia of falsifying her medical history for personal gain. There's a pretty big section on that in the doc. Accused Radia of falsifying her education and career for personal gain. Accused Radia of money hoarding. whatever that means. Isn't money hurting better than money spending? And digging into Radia's personal background through all available public resources and using it to build a false narrative of Radia's dishonesty. Basically, they went out and fished like her LinkedIn, which had some of her private information on it. They found her real name too. Attempted sabotage of Radia's romantic relationship as part of the slander campaign, attempting to provide her partner with a heavily editorialized and abusive account of the events when Radia was unable to speak up for her own defense, and twisting her version of what transpired based on who she was speaking to, based on what she believed would be the most sympathetically received, ensuring no person ever received the same story as another. And active denial of these actions, attempting to play the victim when third parties begun to investigate outside of her ability to control them or threaten them. And then there's a list of, the damage to Radia. She's suffered immense psychological anguish, reduced to tears, and begging apologies for things she did not do in an attempt to keep friendship she valued and placate someone she believed was her best friend. Needed to be hospitalized 4 days after the initial onset due to heart palpitation. Extreme stress due to attempts to be private and professional about the matter, and due to not wanting to bother others. Had personal identifying information leaked to outside uninvolved parties by someone she previously trusted or espoused as a sister. Suffered isolation from her friends and loved ones due to slander and rumor mongering. Considered on multiple occasions leaving content entirely to appease Adora, delay in her ability to re-enter educate plans due to the situation, and resulting in an irreversible loss of significant amount of financial aid. She had to delay her college, if I remember properly, and lost a lot of money because of that. Loss of her roommate, who Radia considered to be family. The sudden drop in her mental health and sharp drop in income left her unable to support her college plan. She was supporting financially her roommate to go to college, and because of everything going on, and she couldn't support him anymore, so he had to move out. Severe decline in income due to combine of the slander campaign and a sharp decline in her mental health, inhibiting her ability to stream, and ongoing fear and trauma from believing nobody would believe her if she told her side of the story, harassment of people who even spoke to her at a convention, leading to further isolation, and nearly successful suicide attempt due to extreme isolation and a genuine belief that there was no other way. They go into the reasons of putting out a document later on, so this is repetitive. There's a lot of repetition in this document. Here they're saying they're just kind of lacking some evidence from VODs that have expired due to the length of time it took the situation to progress to this point, as a document of this nature was not considered until nearly 2 months had passed. Name/statement that have been left out due to fear of retaliation from Adora. Names and statement that have been left out due to fear of retaliation from social media. And names that have been left out due to unrelated professional obligation and concerns. Testimonies that could not be included due to time constraints on the part of those given them. And it must be noted that a significant amount of Adora's action were done over voice call, so they couldn't compile proof for that. This document is solely aimed at addressing Adora's action, and all other mentioned parties should be assumed to be innocent or misinformed. While it would be irresponsible to speculate on the reasoning and psychology behind Adora's action, this document will at times include discussion and analysis of the language used in particular. Okay, whatever. Just get to the point, please! Additional victims. During the course of assembling this document, we have been able to identify at least one other victim of Adora's abuse. There are likely more that we have been unable to identify. This document only has the authority to address the action taken against Radia. We will not be discussing the abuse visited upon other individuals. However, at minimum, there are credible allegations of additional doxing, financial abuse, false accusation, slander, social ostracization, and emotional abuse. So the initial confrontation. Adora's action begun after Anime North. Radia was completely unaware that anything was wrong and believed the trip had been a huge success and was immensely happy at getting to spend time with her friends. Without her knowledge, Adora had involved Finari Mori and Pomado Master, the other two members of Project STEM, to begin compiling a list of specific incidents where Radia said things they considered insensitive or hurtful, or had not been fully honest with her about her personal details. While all three members were involved in this, it is unlikely the other two members were aware of the extent of Adora's intention regarding this. Rather than address these things one-on-one or calmly, Radia was then lured into a voice call in the Project Stim server under the guise of an emergency meeting on May 27, 2025. Upon entering this call, what transpired was an incredibly poorly received intervention that operated more as an interrogation, as perceived lies were fired off at Radia and receipts demanded as they went down the list infraction by infraction. I hope travels home were safe. Adora responds, home safe, and I take Fen to the airport tonight. I hope you rested well. Radia says, glad the trip home wasn't eventful at the border. I got a lot of rest yesterday. I slept like 11 hours last night. Also, Sunday's Mead's debut, so I'm just checking in with him on Lenfa stream to try and help support with our raids. Hey, we need to have an emergency Stim meeting right now. Can you jump in working in Stim? Sure. While no recording of this call exists, third-party sources have confirmed that they had involved parties outside of Project Stim from the beginning of this and had already begun slandering Radia's reputation to others. They were also advised that such a format was a poor idea and went forward with it regardless. The end result of this call was Radia being forced to stand, humiliated and near tears outside in her gym's parking lot as she was raked over the coals for things she had no idea were bothering others. These accusations included compulsive lying, a lack of gratitude, actions that were bad optics for the group, and an emotional appeal for Radia to take a break. By the time this conversation had ended, Radia was so hysterical she could say nothing in her own defense and had fully capitulated to the narrative as it was presented to her. That's sad. It took several days before she was calm enough to explain her side of the story. Up until this time, Radia's partner, friends, and family received no information regarding what had occurred outside of the narrative being communicated by Adora. A third party has confirmed that by this point, all 3 members of Project Stim had privately recognized that the intervention had been a poor choice. No admission of this was ever made. Is it me or this feels like still very vague? Radia was lured into a poorly planned 3v1 intervention/interrogation where she was accused of being ungrateful, a compulsive liar, a content thief, and having falsified her medical conditions for monetary gain. She was sent into days-long emotional breakdown during which Adora dictated a dishonest version of events to both her friends and family. Adora doctored document that purported to represent the facts of the event to remove most reference to herself, and she extensively attempted to drive a wedge in Radia's relationship with her partner through extensive disinformation provided when he was in an emotionally compromised stage. And then Radia was forced to leave Project Stim. So I guess from this hypnosis, we can learn that the intervention was because she was being accused of being ungrateful, a compulsive liar, a content thief, and having falsified her medical conditions for monetary gain. I don't think this is the regular kind of intervention. Usually you do an intervention when somebody's like in a bad spot mentally and you want to help them, no? I'll be honest, everything after this is what matters. This part about the Project Stim problem is more strong disagreement between the members, finding out they can't really work with each other. Okay. Alright, well, we'll keep on reading. So, a post-confrontation. Unbeknownst to the other members of Project Stim, Adora privately communicated significantly more hostile demands to Radia of her own volition. The full documentation of the message had been redacted due to sharing of personal details. For the sake of brevity, a significant selection of screenshots excerpt will be provided here. Alright, screenshot from May 27, 2025. I will say, I do not think June 1st is long enough break. This is generally a make or break situation in our friendship, Ray. And I do generally love you, but I'm hurt and don't feel like I can fully trust you anymore, and that needs to be rebuilt. And I want to rebuild it with you so badly because of all the good times we've had together. You need to recenter and change your approach and connection with streaming. And there's a bunch of barred out text. I want to see you become better in this stuff so I can trust you fully again. And then Radia responds, I love you too, and I've not been doing amazing since redacted, honestly. There was a lot of decade-long purpose loss and fear gained afterward. Well, I can't take the entire month off work. That just isn't feasible regardless of how much OT I have, unless I do disability leave, which I reserve for yearly surgeries. My overall schedule is light. I'm going to keep what I have scheduled because at least it's scheduled social time that breaks up my week, but I'm not going to be overbooking myself or present 5 days a week on stream, my own or others, for a long time. She responds, you really need to detach from streaming, Radia. I say this out of place for love and concern. I give you more time to process, but I'm going to be firm on this. I don't trust you right now. I don't feel comfortable having you on my stream, doing content with you, and you are my friend, and I love you for you. I want the good I see in you to be the part that's there, but it's hard when I keep feeling lied to. Please stop lying to me, and please recenter, meditate, and refocus. You need it. Burnout is the real killer. And if you come back quickly, it is over because it means you didn't learn what's wrong here. This is our make or break moment. And I hate saying that, but I never lied to you. Once. What the fuck? You can't say never and they say, well, actually once. And I hate saying that, but I never lied to you. Once. But I don't know when you're lying to me, and that hurts a lot. And there's some barred out text again due to redacting personal info or just third parties. I don't like hearing you told Kono I didn't help you enough. I am not perfect, but I genuinely give you my everything. I just don't want you to lie or feel like I'm being lied to. That's all. We can fix this, but I need you to understand what is wrong here so we can... Okay, it's just... This is way too redacted. The whole sentence after that's all is barred out. This part's barred out. It's going to be a long road. This is the start. I want this to work. You're family to me. And then there's another sentence here. And at the end, it's just change and disregard. Like, at this point, just crop the screenshot earlier, no? May 28th. Another Adora screenshot. So the next day. Going to say this now. I think you genuinely need a full social cleanse right now and detox. She's really pushing for her not to start streaming again. Not even your own community. No Twitter, no Twitch chat, nothing. You have an unhealthy tie to it, and the more you interact with it right now, the unhealthy connection you have to streaming will continue, and you let it enable bad behavior. I don't see any messages for a bit, and you communicate with loved ones you plan to do that so you can still hang out with IRL folks. This is generally a serious moment, Ray, and I don't want to lose you as someone I love. Please rest so you can recenter and not tie content to an integral part of your heart. You're more than that. You have my phone number and you can text me and others there. We can even have phone calls to check in during. Yeah, you need a social cleanse or I'll drop you. I just want my old friend back that's unprompted of nothing gave support and money when I was sick. Not the one worrying about numbers and money from stream. And Radia responds, I just don't see a place for me right now in anything, let alone my presence making anything better now or in the future. I don't have any faith in my ability to do so anymore. I don't want people in person near me at the moment because I have no trust in my ability to not make basic human activities go awry. This is on May 29th. They have another conversation. Figure I'd remind, but so you can focus on stuff and just for the sake of our friendship, I don't have you down for any collabs in June and won't be coming on as well until July at the earliest, so don't feel obligated to stream because of me. So if there's anything I'm scheduled for, please take me off of it. Also, I hope you didn't get hit too hard by Concrud. Radia says, I'm just thinking of leaving. I don't have it in me to stay a month in unplanned isolation as everything slowly degrades. I'm not allowed to be around even in any capacity, whether it be for comfort or socialization. This isn't even about streaming. I'm just not supposed to be around. And Radia responds, I don't know what to believe in. I'm certainly not a good person. I've never been under the impression that I am in any way particularly good person. And Adora says, nobody is a good person. We are all people. A big thing for me was realizing I need to be a person who does good things. It's what helped me a lot to work on myself. You've done bad things, but it doesn't mean you're a bad person. I've done bad things too. But the more and more good things we do, the better we will be. We can't rest on our laurels ever and think we are good people. But also thinking we are bad isn't helpful. I remember when I had COVID and you immediately swooped in to help me unasked. That was a good thing. You did a good thing. I don't think this was a good thing, Radia responds. It just felt normal to do. Even things supposedly good by definition I get hurt or punished for at times. I haven't ever felt I've done good, so to speak. I've just done what I should. I just don't know what any of you want. I haven't done anything but my day job, sleep, schedule therapy, and sit on thoughts because I fear doing anything else. I don't know what is a good enough punishment to atone. How much should I give up to be worthy? It's ambiguous and unattainable in my mind. I feel like I'm being gaslit right now, and I don't even know what Adora is so... we don't even know what Adora is so upset at her for, unless it's like the accusation that the STEM project levied against her, but they weren't very precise. Maybe we'll find out later. Adora says it's not about punishment or atoning, it's about getting better. I don't want any more lies and want to be able to trust again. It doesn't mean if you ever get caught in a lie again, our friendship is over. I just want you to take accountability when you are, apologize, and then do it less. I guess the biggest thing is that she keeps saying that Radia is lying to her. But lying about what? It also just means if something is off, I'm going to just ask for receipts for a while, like I did with my dad. I also just want to see you feel a general gratitude for the good things in your life. Those are the two main things. I also just want your content brain rot fought against. I also don't want to see you complaining about things like money with folks that are less fortunate, or expressing jealousy towards others that have less than you, or folks who love you. I also want to see you do your own thing when it comes to content and not copy others or move things around or act weird. Just stick to a schedule of days and do the things you think of, not things you think you need to copy or emulate out of non-existent obligation. Those are the main things I'll reiterate. This will be my last message for today. I mean, Adora feels condescending, and I don't know what I would do if my best friend would tell me, you have to stop streaming, like you have to stop working or we're done. It feels a little bit sad because from the interaction, it feels like one person is like retreating on themselves, like Radia, and Adora is like, it sounds like she's in control, but again, we don't have the other side yet. Okay, so Radia says, you don't have to answer, obviously, but I'm not supposed to be around for I don't know how long. How am I even supposed to stick to a schedule of days when I'm not even allowed back regardless of if I'm doing anything with you at all or not? How do you even want me to prove myself in isolation, really? I don't feel I'm allowed to do anything, for it will mean I'm not sorry enough or trying hard enough if I dare to do anything online. There isn't a way to prove anything is improving if I'm not supposed to exist in any capacity around the space. It's not as if you all exist around me physically. I'm tired, I've had to take on a lot within a short period of a few months. It's not been managed the best, obviously, and it's resulted in constantly feeling illogical emotions or the omnipresent fear of losing everything I ever worked for. I don't have it in me to live like I used to, where everything was uncertain, even food. All I've done is work so I could one day not fear and maybe rest. It's a deep fear when I'm this overwhelmed. Adora says, I'll talk more tomorrow, maintaining my boundary of the last message. I know I just left it there so I would not forget. Otherwise, I would unfortunately forget entirely. I need to talk more 2 days later. Now I get that. In reality, I could make past Adora do anything. It would be just to deal with your spirals and never try to just let things slide that weren't socially okay rather than let them pile up. I won't be doing that going forward though. Letting things slide. I'll just tell you as an adult, like my other friends tell me when I do fuck ups. Then Radia's like, I appreciate it. It basically was the equivalent of having a bomb thrown into my window with no room to actually speak because it wasn't a conversation in which my words had any inherent significance. I'm not unaware of issues, nor is it something I've been trying to correct at various stages of a downhill slide for the past few months. Okay, there's more. I've never been upset at you for getting the help you needed. I was happy you had the support at the time and could heal. That's a good thing. And I never held malice for Fen being there. My only metrics for care were based solely upon the lack of presence from other parties, specifically the person I needed the most when I was suffering. This isn't everything that has been on me, but it's just a part of a greater series of issues and misunderstanding. I go look at fish for a bit. Go enjoy fish. I will. Appreciate you talking. And Radio drops another text. I just wish that there had been a sit-down conversation before letting things become a massive barrage that I was surprised with in public. One of the major reasons I was consistently struggling was trying to manage everything I knew was wrong on my own while being hit with more problems. A sit-down conversation with everyone to properly check and discuss behavior would have been more of a corrective method than just mentions of behavior that rubbed people wrong or holding it from my knowledge. Adora says, okay, I get it, but in the end I was unfortunately not really an easy way to do it, as well as kind of needed to be said for the sake of healing to happen. I want you to know, at least on our end, we are all cheering you on and are hopeful there'll be better communication going forward. Radia says, I'm just incredibly conflicted about doing anything. I don't feel I have any right to be present anything, nor am I wanted around. Adora says, if that wasn't true, it would have gone completely different. Regardless, time will help heal. 4 days after her initial call with Adora, Radia was admitted to the hospital. The stress of dealing with the situation began to cause severe complication with her already rapidly decaying health. So Radia has like a lot of medical issues. The document goes into details later on, but she's got many like medical problems already. So I guess this is kind of bringing her over the edge. So here's a conversation between Radia and Digital Vagrant, which we've been told is her boyfriend for context. Thinking about the hospital, my resting heart rate at dinner was 115 sitting down. Fucking hell, he says. I'm back home now. If you need to go, go. I will meet you there. But there's a pain in the middle of my back, she adds. And my jaw hurts as well as the back of my neck. I don't know what's wrong. You probably ground your teeth all night. No, it's numb. Fuck. That's the plan. I don't want to go, but I sat an entire dinner at least knowing it was at a 110 plus heart rate. The entire aquarium visit felt short of breath. Now I just feel tired. Even if it's nothing, honey, just stress. It's better to be sure. We can get a baseline of what's going on. But I've just wasted money and looking like I want attention. Sweetie, this is a medical attention. I don't want to look like I'm seeking attention or money for medical issues. Sweetie, I know your medical history. To think you'd be faking this is delusional. If you were looking for attention, we wouldn't have to fight you for like half an hour every time to get you to go. You hate hospitals. I know you know my medical history. You've been through my papers. If you want attention, this be a really weird way to do it. So here she says, yeah, I'm calling an Uber now. Good. The pain in my upper back won't go away. Let me know when you're getting close and I will drive there to meet you. Just left. Okay, cool. I'll be at the ER by 9:20. Gotcha. Sorry for the hassle. Okay, yada yada. She's going to the ER. So the stuff in green is written by... Laserpig is light green. Yes. Okay. That's Laserpig. I don't like the whole psychology bit. It should be observed. Adora uses a type of language called coercive control, something common in abusive relationship. Those who have come from abusive households, be that an ex-partner or your own parents, may find the language used familiar. Coercive control tactics can be extremely subtle and may not be apparent to the people around the victim or indeed the victim themselves. Example of coercive control include strict and restrictive routine, extreme and often unfounded jealousy, accusations and threats, a cycle of physical, sexual, or financial abuse, or a combination of all these. Gaslighting, isolation from loved ones and work colleagues by creating rifts. Example of things an abuser might say include, you make me feel bad, no one can trust you, I truly love you but you need to change. In short, the abuser will attempt to control a narrative around the victim presented to both the abused and to the audience, that the abuse they receive is somehow entirely their fault and that the abuser is being forced to act because of it. In many cases, when this abuse is challenged or acknowledged as abuse, the abuser will often be quick to play the victim, assured that everyone is ganging up on them when they were just trying to do what was right. Their goal will be to create confusion, isolation, and diminish the victim's sense of self by subjecting their target to verbal abuse. Perpetrators begin to hold control over their victim's life, instilling a sense of hopelessness and sometimes fear into them, while also taking away their independence. It's important to note the significant focus Adora placed on Radia stepping away from streaming and the internet entirely for a time. She returns to that point again and again, reminding Radia on a daily basis of her ostracization. Post-intervention escalation. Up until this point, this appeared to be something that, although handled incredibly poorly, there was room for this to be resolved. Adora outwardly appeared willing to reconcile. Yeah, that's true. Like, by that point, it seems like there still is a friendship that could be salvaged. Especially since Adora is always like, I care about you, I love you, I'm doing this for your sake. Radia was actively attempting to apologize for whatever hurt feelings her action had caused. It is during the time period of May 30th to 31st that a noticeable shift begun. During this time, Radia was finally able to open up regarding what had taken place during the initial confrontation. It is at this point the narrative that had been fed to outside parties begun to unravel. The primary source for the discovery of these discrepancies, outside of Radia's own words, was a document that had been forwarded to Digital Vagrant, Radia's partner, on May 29th. 2 days after the initial confrontation, it was represented as bullet points of what had been gone over during the call, as well as a summary of what Radia had done to justify the call in the first place. Gee, everyone's a psychologist these days. It seems really I'd recommend taking a Google Docs. I mean, I disagree also with the addition of the psychology analysis for the Google Doc. Like, just let people come up to their own conclusions. You don't have to like handhold them through the psychology stuff. And also, if you're not a practice psychologist, like I don't like the whole armchair psychology thing. But this is kind of fucked up that she sent like the bullet points of the intervention to her boyfriend. That's crazy. So she's sending him the document. Before we talked to her, we wrote out a bunch of things we wanted to bring up with her. I think I cut out all of the stuff we ended up not talking about her. This document has been altered. Adora had edited significantly to remove almost every point which mentioned herself before sending it without the knowledge of anyone else involved. The full version of this list, minus redactions of personal information, can be found below. All right, so this was the original document that she had. Saturday night stream. So this is what they were upset with her about. Lying or massively overemphasizing a health issue to make money. Keeping it a secret from us and purposefully hiding it from us. Complaining about financial situation the next/same day and complained about hotel not being able to afford it. Stated that hotel suite upgraded would be only $50 for an entire stay. Never mentioned Chinese food to us despite mentioning it in chat. I don't see why is this part that why is mentioning Chinese food bad? Had a hugely successful stream night predicated on a lie and didn't bring it up to us on any capacity and instead only complained about money for a hotel the day after. Yeah, but the Chinese food? Reasons why we think food poisoning is not true. We know for a fact that she woke up in the morning 10 hours later leaving the hotel room. Ate breakfast in the car casually, Tim Hortons breakfast sandwich and donut holes, and ate food with gluten in it. Arrived at aquarium with no known issue to then swim in bioactive water with stingrays while immunocompromised. This is why they believe that she's lying about her medical issues. Ate frozen yogurt shortly after, something high in lactose. Ate a creamy Alfredo pasta with seafood shortly after. Only information ever given was during Montana's that she might be bad for her to eat a blue rare steak and not feeling well. Conclusion, if you're willing to lie about your health, we don't know how we can trust you and we don't want to send our communities to you because this is the sort of thing that if it got out, would look incredibly poorly on you. Stop. Just because your mental health is bad doesn't mean you can deceive people in this way and that you should take a break, and if you do not do so, we are going to have to consider tearing apart the group if you don't have the ability to process this. We also need proof and information that shows us she is not lying on certain aspects. Okay, so I feel like I need to clear something up on this. Alright, we're listening. This is not a cancelled doc or anything like that. This was a document of notes that they wanted to bring up when talking to Radia, so the document makes no sense because it doesn't explain stuff. Yeah, I get this idea. People who specifically were there for these things know what it's referring to. Yeah, I mean, we're just trying to piece the puzzle pieces together. But from my understanding, they basically listed a bunch of clues and hints, and they're wondering why they suspect that she's lying about her health to their communities and hers, is what I'm understanding. Okay, chat, you're not following. This document, the stuff in black that we're reading right now with the black background, has not been released to the public. This is the document that they brought into the quote-unquote intervention call, like that emergency meeting where they all ganged up on her. These were the points being brought up. And then, in the story we're at, in this post-intervention escalation, they're saying that Adora sent this document, these notes from the call to Radia's boyfriend, probably in an attempt to put a wedge between them. But then they're adding that the document had been altered and Adora had removed a lot of stuff from it, everything where she was mentioned herself. So we just went through the quote-unquote original alleged note document, and I don't know if we don't have the comparison of the new version, so. It's missing on this because nobody else was supposed to see it. Radia is the one who leaked this. I get it. Yeah. Okay, it all makes sense now. Below is a list of their main points along with an analysis of the framing that was used in the document. Main issue number 1, Saturday night stream. This section revolved around the alleged hiding of a late night Saturday night stream done by Radia's partner, Digital Vagrant, while she was away. Radia was also accused of faking food poisoning and playing up her illness for money with a variety of poorly constructed evidence and a complete lack of understanding of medical issues. So, screenshot analysis time! Pog. The problem in these openings should be obvious as you read it below. Accusations are made without context and supported with no evidence, even anecdotal. Several of them contradict each other and others are provided with so little context that it is hard to understand exactly what they mean. It is simply assumed Radia is lying about her health, and the fact that she was able to run a stream in which a lot of gift subs were given out is offered as a connection in spite of the fact Radia will frequently run streams which generate gifted subscriptions and hype trains. In the same manner, one could make the accusation that Radia uses her cat to garner money from her supporters. The type of health problem also changes 3 times. At first it is unspecified, then it jumps to food poisoning, and then to mental health. It also accuses Radia of massively overemphasizing a health problem for money. but also keeping it a secret. This is a complete contradiction. Radia is entitled to her privacy and has made it clear on numerous occasions she does not like discussing her health issues and will often refer to her health issues as hot girl tummy troubles. Other members of Project STEM also do this, including Adora and other VTubers within the same sphere of influence. The other highlighted issues seem to focus on Radia's consumption of dairy products, with the presumed assumption that Radia is lying about being lactose intolerant. Lactose intolerant is not an uncommon issue. There's pills which contain enzymes, which, if they can daily, allow someone with lactose intolerance to consume dairy products. So she has these pills on her person, along with other necessary mealtime meds, and had been vocal about taking these pills. Adora would know she was taking them. All of these are small, nitpicky items that could have been resolved in 15-minute conversation with Radia over coffee. None of this is ground for an intervention. I don't think intervention was the right word for this. It seemed more like she got ganked. The final conclusion is a good example of the kind of abusive language highlighted earlier. Punishment is framed as not only a result of Radia's action, but also a favor to prevent the situation getting worse. It's a classic "I'm doing this for your own good" argument and leads heavily on isolating Radia from outside sources. Alright, so after they were like, yo, they did this intervention, and they're like, yo, you're lying about your, health issues, you're, trying to scam your community for money because you're lying about your medical issues, obviously. So you're gonna take a break from streaming. And and they were like, by the way, this is for your own good, but please don't work for an entire month. This is a tactic used to force a mind into a submissive position. The feeling one gets when faced with this sort of language is a sense of hopelessness. And if you like defenses against this sort of thing, then the mind cannot help but do everything it can to prove innocence. Okay, I don't know about in general, because not everybody acts like that, but from what it sounds like, once she gets into this call, Radia feels overwhelmed and she shuts down, and she is not able to refute any of the accusation against her. So she's kind of just goes into I'm sorry mode, and she's complying with them. And it's only days later when she stopped freaking out. And as you guys can see, she even ended up going to the hospital because of her high heart problem. That's when she finally managed to be like, okay, this is not actually what happened, and I do have reasons for all of your, accusations. Main issue number 2 from the analysis. This section features a number of alleged comments made by Radia that were either interpreted as malicious or actively misconstrued as Radia displaying a lack of gratitude, painting her as unappreciative for the support received and for her friends in general. It also featured accusations that Radia, as she made more money than others, had no right to complain or express anxiety about monetary issues around others who had less. There's a lot to unpack in this section, but the one factor you should be primarily aware of is that Adora has been to Radia's house, where her monthly budget is stapled to the fridge. Okay? Adora is fully aware of Radia's living expenses, including mortgage and medical bills. Prior to this incident, Radia looked upon Adora as a sister and confided in her a serious amount of personal information, which included her monthly incomes and outgoing. Again, you'll note the constant use of "this is good for you," followed by "you didn't say thank you enough." Yo, the gaslight is insane. This is again the language of the abuser, in particular one with narcissistic tendencies. Okay, I'm just gonna skip the psychological stuff, and I just want to get I'm trying to skim through to get the additional info. All these accusations are again minor nitpicks. You see a repeat of the $50 hotel suite argument. And I will not insult the intelligence of the reader by explaining why someone may have concerns over spending thousands of dollars for flights, hotels, convention materials, and restaurant, but might find a $50 hotel room upgrade good value and potentially worth it. These are simply methods of degrading Radia's mental state and making her feel guilty for receiving and spending money. Main issue number 3, copying of content. Yeah, I'm curious about this part. What kind of copying content? Because I know they blamed her for copying some tweets later on. This section, while incredibly short, alleges that Radia copied the content of those around her. So, the green text is saying, the final issue is short and lacks substance. Again, these are fictitious claims with no real evidence, as they attempt to allude to a greater problem without having to mention or provide evidence it's happening. The few things mentioned, such as the elevator skit, is something Adora worked with Radia to replicate on her own channel. Aforementioned YouTuber Laser Pig Me claimed Adora even offered to show him how it worked if he wanted to replicate it for his own streams. The TLDR at the end is more interest. Again, the repetition that Radia is at fault and the need to take a break or else is repeated. Accusations are sandwiched after compliments. Again, a repetition of the roller coaster tactic. The document cuts off abruptly mid-sentence here, likely due to Adora's altering of the document. Confronted with the disparity between Radia's account of events and the list's allegations, combined with the stark contrast between how the initial confrontation had been portrayed and how it actually occurred, it is at this point Adora begun to receive pushback from Digital Vagrant. His account of events follow. This is kind of true. Both Adora and Radia offered me help with setting up the same tech, though I declined. Okay, so, I mean, she offered her to learn to do this tech, so it wasn't really copied. So this is going to be from the perspective of her boyfriend, Digital Vagrant. I want to preface this statement by pointing out that at first, I had no reason to disbelieve Adora's sincerity or honesty. She had proclaimed constantly that she saw Radia as a sister and genuinely believed that she was approaching me from an honest place. Further, though I do not wish to indulge in the details, I'm a former abuse victim of extremely similar tactics to what was used in this situation. I'm extremely susceptible to tactics like this and have spent significant amount of time in therapy, including during the time of this document, attempting to improve this. I was messaged by Fennery Mori as I came out of therapy session in the early morning of Tuesday, May 27th. Fen's statement were mostly benign warnings that Radia's mental state would likely be fragile, but made specific mention of many of the accusations mentioned in the list while providing no evidence. It was at this point that Fen dropped out of contact due to falling ill. This was the last information I would receive for 2 days. I had received no warning that any of this would occur and had suddenly had a nuclear warhead drop directly into my lap. The next 48 hours were abject hell. I was effectively paralyzed, unable to do my day job, effectively barely sleeping, head feeling like it was full of static as it appeared. My life was disintegrating before my eyes. My partner was in a state of near complete hysteria. It took all of my energy to keep her from making incredibly rash decisions, including abruptly departing from the content space with no plan for making up the financial gap, while also attempting to get her to speak to me about what had happened. From what I could tell, her shame and humiliation was so overwhelming she couldn't speak to me about it. She just continued to blame herself while trying to figure out how to properly atone, incredibly focused on attempting to save her friendship. Yo, this is so sad. Like, I can feel her distress right now. But the way he's describing her distress is, it's kind of heart-wrenching. It was on May 29th that Adora chose to reach out to me. She appeared sympathetic, and I was so emotionally exhausted from the events of the prior days. My car had also been rear-ended during this that I did not question at first what she was saying, even when she provided me the aforementioned list of accusations. I mean, trust me, if she keeps doing this, I will keep my distance. In the end, I can't fix her. She has to fix herself. No, neither can I, he says. Take care of yourself, Digi. I'm trying, but it genuinely feels like my world collapsed out from under me Tuesday. I do not doubt her affection for me. That can't have been fake, but the rest of this, I don't know. Also, even he's doubting her at this point. I would say I wish we could have given you more a heads up, but we literally talked to her after 2 hours of putting that list and issues together. What later initially struck me as odd once I came out of my emotional shell shock was that Adora had slipped in accusations that made no sense in hindsight and had not been listed on the document. Some seemed utterly misinformed and even abjectly cruel. Note that Adora has been long aware that Radia had chronic medical issues of severe nature, even if she has not been privy to the full details. There was no basis to make the below comment. I'm really worried content was just making her worse and not better, because I know I personally have to fight off my own brain rot and demons from it. Oh, an unrelated note, can you make sure Ray eats enough? When I saw her at Anime North, she had lost considerable amounts of weight since I saw her last, and I'm concerned she may have an ED. Alright. Throwing out eating disorder accusations, I guess. It's a little bit, yikes. It was not until Radia begun speaking with the assistance of her roommate that I began to get suspicious and actually start to think critically again. Once I was informed of the nature of the meeting and inconsistencies began to show, I was incredibly unhappy with what I was hearing and decided to follow through on our recent therapy efforts to cease being conflict avoidant and express when I'm upset rather than bottling up. I request a phone call with Adora and Palm in order to hopefully express my displeasure with the way in which Radia had been spoken to and the destruction of both her week, my week, and the week of her roommate with no warning. So this is just him asking for to make a phone call, and he's telling them, saying that it was a terrible idea. So was the way in which you engaged with her. She's like, so how should we have engaged with her? With your perfect hindsight, since we were the ones that had to breach the hard convo. Wait days and do it individually, or talk to her like a friend immediately, and how I'd talk to her now going forward. These are extremely cropped, by the way. She's been compulsively lying to us and her audience, and it had to be talked about immediately. How is telling her she needs to be grateful to her friends acting as a brand risk? First off, I'm not acting, I have the perfect hindsight. Are we not supposed to confront her ever, DG? Like, yeah, going forward, we're going to make it not pile up. Secondly, I don't think it's hard to realize that 3-on-1 surprise voice call session is probably not the best way to engage someone who suffers from that kind of trauma. Yeah, except I'm honestly confused because I was the one doing the streaming, and she didn't even mention the food poisoning stuff until the hype train was well underway. Nor did Veggie and I make it a big part of the dono conversation. And Adora responds, Radia isn't an idiot. She knows what a food poisoning is, dude. He says, I'm pretty sure I'm not an idiot and I misuse terms all the time. I apologize if I started too aggressively, but I am upset. I can't lie about that. It's fine, you had to go to the hospital with her, I get it. No, and that's fine, but I'm standing pretty firm that we treated her like an adult, and that's the whole point in the end. And he continues saying, but unfortunately, I'm not going to agree with you on how you did things. The entire format is hostile. She was never going to respond well to that. DG, you're just basing it off what Radia said. Of course her perspective is going to be skewed, but that literally is not what happened. And he says, I'm basing it off what NYMN said. I guess somebody else that was there. It took me days to get anything out of Radia at all. This is not just taking Ray's word for it. I understand that, but NIM also was not directly... Oh, NIM. It's not an acronym. It's actually just NIM. I'm dumb. Oh, that's a roommate. Okay. I understand that, but NIM also was not directly there in person for the actual convo we had with her. Adora, it literally does not matter what words you used or how polite you were. The way in which it was sprung on her pretty much guaranteed she was going to react like a deer in the headlights. It just wasn't a smart idea. So far from this document, from this perspective, it does seem like that. One-on-one is not how that works, DG. We're group. We didn't bring anyone else into the call that was not part of the group. We didn't bring anyone else since it was only relevant to us. Originally, if one-on-one communication with people worked, interventions wouldn't even be a thing either. I generally am going to hard disagree on the one-on-one being the answer there. An important point to note, it was only after considerable time had passed that I discovered even the last point was a lie. Adora had already begun to involve third parties by this point, and there was even a non-project STEM third-party individual in the calls where they planned their intervention. But at this point, I still had hope that Adora was operating in good faith, albeit horribly misguided in how they communicated and perhaps reluctant to admit it. I did not expect what came next. This call was unproductive. I was met with defensive hostility immediately from the get-go, to the point that I nearly retreated from the call entirely. Adora refused any request to apologize and only repeated justifications and excuses for the actions taken. I left the call frustrated and dissatisfied, both with the logic presented to me and the way in which I was spoken to, which was full of strawman arguments and attempts to dodge any kind of accountability. I was not spoken to like a third party they felt guilty about involving, but a nosy trespasser they wanted to force to back down. And then I later found out from a mutual friend that Adora flippantly referred to me as doing a misogyny because I objected to the aggressive tone right off the gate, as well as dismissing me as biased when the only points I raised were that a lot of their action seemed extreme, as well as expressing a displeasure for this being sprung on me with zero warning. I mean, nowadays your bias just means I disagree with you. Let's be real. I explained multiple times this was an attempt on my part to enforce my boundaries, which I have been in therapy for months about due to my tendencies toward conflict avoidance. This apparently had no effect on their opinion. That's basically, he got into the call. He was like, yo, the tone here is way aggressive. Can you guys settle down? And they were like, yo, you're being a misogynist. Okay. All right. Here's a screenshot of her saying, oh, 100%, of course he's biased. I mean, yeah, of course he's biased. He's her boyfriend. He's gonna take her side, yes, but That doesn't mean you gotta dismiss everything he says. We all know that and aren't mad at him for that. Mostly just him doing a misogyny on Palm. Yeah, get it right. It's not misogyny. It's called mansplaining. It was at this point I seized all communication with Adora, Palm, and Fenari. The level of defensive irritation and attempted minimizing of my concerns was upsetting, and only intensified my feelings that something was not right. While my direct involvement with any dialogue ended at this point, switching solely to assisting Radia, I did bear witness to the extent of that cruelty that came next. While I understand that my account of things will inherently be considered biased due to my status as her partner, I want to emphasize anyway that Radia, up until she realized what was being done to her, fully attempted to appease Adora and any aggrieved parties as much as possible, and heavily heaped blame on herself, even in cases where the accusations were not true or were heavily misrepresented in hopes of saving her friendship. This went as far as Radia heavily considering just leaving content entirely multiple times. Yeah, we've said that before. Why do we gotta repeat that? This remained her main priority up until that it became obvious that was no longer possible, and even after that she attempted to separate quietly and professionally because she did not want to cause trouble. I will not be posting any screenshots of the conversation we had during these moments. They are both deeply personal and gut-wrenching in the despair and display. Radia is incredibly conflict avoidant, even more so than I am. It's a particular sticking point in our relationship that we have sought counseling on, as neither of us wish to bother or take advantage of the other, even when our problems are near overwhelming and deserving of help. To say that she was attempting to cause trouble on purpose defies sanity. Aww. Yeah, it feels like it. It's like there's one woman that seems like she has a very powerful presence, and another one that seems drawn back and vulnerable. This is going to be a bad matchup. I feel like there's a power dynamic there that's oh my god, I can't believe I used the power dynamic word. It's so cringe. It's so cringe. Oh my god. It's because of the green text that I'm talking like this. I swear to god. But it's kind of applicable here. It was at this point that another party's involvement begun. Laserpig. Laserpig, a mutual friend of all three parties who had received Spillover's awareness of the ongoing issues when Digital Vagrant had reached out for understanding and support in the wake of the initial confrontation. Laserpig decided to act as a neutral third party, not attempting to get directly involved. He did not directly contact Adora or Radia until after this portion. However, it's important to document that he had been tangentially involved at this point. So Laserpig says, alright, send me what you have. Let me talk to Adora. It's not that I don't trust you, I just think everyone's going around and around in their heads and could use a third party. Then Digital Vagrant is like, Nim was being that. I'm not about to start throwing accusation. I'm just expressing frustration and concerns. He says, understandable, my guy. I'm just trying to help where I can. There is more going on here. It's like 20 minutes later. Yeah, this doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The response doesn't. Ray didn't even fight back, dude. Just collapsed. They said she deflected a lot. I don't know. I am biased. I don't exactly want to believe my girlfriend is lying about everything. And then he says, I think you both need to focus inward towards each other, at least for a little while. This will never work if you can't start by trusting each other. Project Stim Ejection. So I guess this is where she gets kicked out of the group. It is at this point that almost all productive conversation broke down between Adora and Radia. The flashpoint for this took place on June 4th during a stream in which Radia was speaking to a fellow content creator offhandedly, mentioning that many relationships in the VTuber space are extremely transactional and how off-putting it could be. This extremely general, non-specific comment was taken as being directed at her Project Stim compatriots, who were apparently monitoring her VODs. This was used as proof that Radia was not actually sorry. So the knock-on effects of this perceived slight were as follow. Attempts by Radia to arrange a follow-up meeting to continue to hashtag were delayed and put off for additional week. Radia was not immediately told of their new point of anger, which was later revealed to Radia on June 11th to be from a stream held earlier in June, in which Radia said, some people view friendship as transactional, while speaking with another uninvolved content creator on content creation in general. None of the Project Stim members were mentioned at any point, including Adora. Note, this VOD was able to be preserved, as it still was able to be downloaded after the attempt to end Radia's life on July 12th. This VOD has been uploaded to a Google Drive to preserve it. When this second conversation finally occurred on June 11th, Radia, now entirely broken and feeling completely alone, desperately tried to appeal to Adora and offer an apology for whatever Adora dictated was the problem. At the same time, she attempted to hold her ground on the point that the way she had been spoken to was unacceptable and caused her and those close to her grievous harm. These apologies were refused and focus remained on how Radia had hurt them, something that continued to be more and more ill-defined the longer the situation continued. Radia then agreed to leave Project STEM in Adora's instructions, though she would refuse Adora's demand to claim it was due to mental health issues, out of fear that it would publicly mark her as an unstable individual and further isolate her. It was at this point that Radia hoped that in the absence of being able to salvage her friendship, at least the situation was over and she could return to streaming without much incident. For this part, I'll say that I wish that they added some screenshots or some evidence, because surely some of these conversations were done in writing. I do think that a lot, like, you know, all of this, for example, doesn't have any evidence. So it's a retelling of a story. It might be true, but it could use some stronger proof. Ongoing slander/harassment campaign. For those with limited time, below are listed bullet points of what occurred during this phase of Adora's campaign. Combing through Radia's personal information, professional social media presence, searching for evidence that she could use to accuse Radia of falsifying her career and education background. Casually doxing Radia's real name and personal information that Adora discovered to completely unrelated third parties. Crazy. Actively spread a disinformation narrative to a still unknown number of uninvolved parties in an attempt to freeze Radia out of as much of her social and support network as possible. Okay, so after she gets kicked from STEM Project, and then they see that that she's back to streaming, then Adora Bunny goes on a slander/harassment campaign? Is that the trigger for that? That's crazy. Publicly disparage Radia both personally and through an additional content creator upon Radia attempting to privately announce to her community about her cessation of content with Adora. Oh, that's the thing with Alicia. Work to continue Radia's isolation at the Off-Guy convention and other various social events. Wow, they try to blacklist her from cons. Inspired implied threats against uninvolved third parties seen speaking to Radia during the Off-Guy convention. What the fuck? Due to extreme isolation and an overwhelming sense of hopelessness regarding the situation, Radia attempted suicide, and an act that was only narrowly averted. Crazy shit. Doxing of personal information. It would later become increasingly apparent that the situation had never been either private or in good faith. Over the next month, more and more information came to light regarding Adora's subterfuge nearly from the beginning of the situation, which only intensified as time went on. Despite Radia's attempts to resolve this issue quietly and privately, Adora has continuously and consistently attempted to discredit Radia's name to everyone she could contact. This was not limited to people directly involved with Project STEM or close friends, but was spread to a still unknown number of people, several of whom were contacted before the initial confrontation had even happened. These are the whispers in people's ears mentioned in the introduction of this document. These whispers range from vague warnings about something potentially coming that Adora would try to keep them out of, to full-blown tales about Radia's purported bad behavior and untrustworthiness. This also includes her roommate, anyone she had recently collabed with, and an unknown numbers of others. The clear goal at play was isolation. This, unfortunately, to a point worked, and Radia had begun to isolate herself both emotionally and physically in fear of the whispers that now arrive thick and fast at her door, including from those she loved or believed she trusted. It had the secondary and likely intended effect that this would also break Radia's confidence. So she began to stream less, she felt unworthy, she described herself as running on 5%, not believe her streams were up to par. She grew fearful of spending money on herself and would often forgo eating. She became more drawn into herself, quiet, difficult to talk to, and would even attempt to end things with her partner because she wasn't worth it. Wow. At this point, the lion's share of evidence comes from testimonials from other parties who came forward over time to provide evidence of Adora's lies, as communication between Adora and Radia had halted, and Adora, presumably due to becoming aware that she was leaving an extensive paper trail, moved most of her communications into VCs. Our picture of the extent of this slander is likely incomplete. We have no way of determining how many people this reached. We have confirmation from independent, uninvolved third parties that this reached at least one content creator with a multi-thousand viewer count, as well as a representative of a corporate entity. Below is a compendium of relevant testimonials during this time period, which lasted from mid-June until present today. Okay, so we're not going to get screenshots, but we're getting testimonials from other parties. So Laserpic said, so I never really wanted to be part of this. Radia and Adora were two very close friends of mine, so I kind of had my head out of the window, so to speak. I wasn't paying attention, didn't care, bigger stuff to attend to than hot girl VTuber drama. Yeah, okay, I heard things on the grapevine. Digi reached out to me a few times and I was a little suspicious of things, and I said I'd maybe talk to Adora Radia, but I was halfway into the video editing hole and basically had my head up my ass. What I said one day, I'd forgotten the next. Then Radia goes into the hospital, and suddenly I have my best friend crying over a voice call, worried that he is going to lose his girlfriend over this, and that's when I started paying closer attention to what was going on. Adora is someone I had always trusted. She was a friend, she helped me out with my OBS problems, showed me how to run streams, and I helped her get a leg up on YouTube. We were always there for each other. I was on her streams a lot, and I was always happy to promote her to my audience because I generally felt she had a talent and her streams were excellent. She was a person I once described as, if I were straight, that is how close we were. So none of this makes any fucking sense. So I talked to her, and obviously she's confused and upset and she cries a little, but she assures me nothing is going on. So I ask her for the truth. I want to hear her side of the story, and that's where things started getting a little odd. Suddenly the tears stop. Oh yeah, the way he describes this is like kind of crazy. Suddenly the tears stop. Suddenly her voice goes a little flat and she starts rambling about something off topic. She starts blaming Radia's declining mental health and how this is all a delusion fantasy cooked up by her and DG, etc. So I ask again, what's going on truly? What's Radia done to cause you both to split like this? She can't answer me. And now she's no longer upset. Now she's getting frustrated. And on the third attempt to coax an answer out of her, she alludes to some long ago stream where Radia said something about fake friends. So I watch it, and it's got nothing to do with Adora. So now I'm just confused. And that's kind of where something snaps in the back of my mind, some little red light I've been ignoring. So I did my due diligence and started digging. I've been down the Ukraine rabbit hole for the better part of the past 4 years. I get attacked by Z-bots almost every day, and I'm up my assholes on Russian propaganda. Bad OSE bros. Scammer, Vatnis, conspiracy goons who think cultural Marxism is real. Okay, what does that have anything to do with this? Because they saw a homeless guy on the subway, and people just want to troll or get a rise out of me. A huge part of my job has become to separate fact from fiction, and I've become really, really good at telling when people are lying to me. And Adora is lying to me. In fact, I don't think you were just making a point that he's dealing with so many loonies because of the kind of content he makes, because he makes like war content, I guess, or like weapon content. That he did all of that just to make the point that he's good at figuring out when people are lying to him. So he's basically some kind of like male Bene Gesserit. In fact, I don't think you need to be someone with any skill to know Adora was lying. The crocodile tears were hints enough, but the sudden frustration and being unable to answer a basic show me on the doll what she did wrong question. But it's when I started talking to others in the VTubing sphere that it just became more than obvious. Everyone I talked to trying to work out what the hell was going on were all giving me different stories about what Adora had said. It's more than obvious she's just making shit up on the fly to hurt Radia for reasons that I don't fucking know. And that's what shook me. Adora is my friend, she lied to me, she continued to lie, and I cannot fathom why. And then I see the document and it all starts to fall into place. I've been hurt in my past, I make no secret of that. I was in a highly toxic relationship for 10 years. The details of which I'll spare you because this isn't about me, but because of that and consequently the therapy I've had regarding it, I've come to recognize the language of the abuser, the way they talk, the way they act, the subtle things they do to keep you down. And that document sent to DG is textbook. It does sound like a novel. The way Adora talks to Radia, the way she acts, the things she says, I recognize it immediately. I lived with that for 10 years. It stood out like a fucking firework display, and at that point I knew exactly what was going on. An abuser's motivation can be complicated and never clear. Sometimes they have none, it's just how they live. But one thing they like to do is involve as many people as physically possible so that the whole drama becomes exhausting for everyone and you are put under pressure to let them get away with it for the sake of everybody else. There are a number of VTubers who know exactly what was going on, who knew exactly what was going on and had the power to stop it, but chose not to for their own sake. I know who those people are, and you want to bet your ass they are on thin fucking ice with me. Oh, big accusations. But for their sake, we tried one last time with Adora. I sat in a call between her and Radia attempting to establish dialogue. My motivations were, if I could just get the two to hash it out, clear the air, maybe we could learn to live with each other and move on. This is not what happened. If you only know Adora through her streams, it would be difficult to describe what she was like in this call. Her usual bubbliness and offensive charm was gone. She spoke in a bizarre, utterly monotone, emotionless way, and simply repeated the same three things over and over and over. We both hurt each other, was a private matter, I'm ready to bury the hatchet. I asked her a grand total of 7 times to explain what Radia had done to hurt her, and she avoided the question, each time refusing to answer. When I asked Adora if she thought Radia deserved an apology, all she could muster was, I'm sorry you feel it's come to this. Damn, she hit her with the I'm sorry you feel that way. When Radia finally blurted out she had tried to take her own life, Adora's response was an utterly hollow, almost eerie, okay, I hope you get help. What? That is ice cold. Jesus. Dear God. Okay. The call finally ended when we simply grew exhausted of trying to get her to say literally anything else. Maybe Adora was ready to finally bury the hatchet, but would you trust someone who had driven you to suicide? Who couldn't even apologize? Tell you what you had done so wrong, or to offend them, or even offer any hint or remorse or guilt. And so I chose to help make this document, adding in sections where I think it should be made obvious to the reader the kind of person Adora is, though I'm not qualified to offer a diagnosis. I can assure you, this behavior I recognize and know well. I live with it every day for a decade. These are the actions of an abuser who delights in the feeling of power and control they hold over others. I truly hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. Man. I mean, she is not Bunny Gift, right? Or Bunny Ayu, but there's like a lot of similarities in the story. All right, so this is the next testimony is an anonymous account of doxing. Note, it is necessary to note that this individual was willing to provide a statement and DM evidence of Adora's doxing of Radia, but asked for their name to be removed due to concerns regarding their professional obligation, their own mental health. So this is what's written in the screenshot. On June 5th, 2025, I was having a conversation with Adora Bunny. During this conversation, she informed me that she was distancing herself due to several reasons, including the fact that Radia had allegedly lied about her master's degree. Adora brought up Radia's LinkedIn, and I stated that I didn't know Radia's IRL name to even be able to look it up. She then gave me Radia's IRL name. That is messed up. Since June 5th, Adora has removed the name, but I still have the search history from that day. I was sent Radia's name even though I did not know it previously, nor should I have ever known it unless Radia herself told me. And then there's a screenshot of Adora saying this, on an unrelated note, letting you know I'm going to be distancing from Radia here soon as his Palm and Fen. Unfortunately, during Anime North, a series of small lies happened that she wouldn't take any responsibility for, and now when we looked around, we realized unfortunately she's lying about her degrees. She just has a bachelor's, no master's. It's why I didn't stream Wednesday, I'm just really devastated. If you need proof of how it makes no sense, just go look at her LinkedIn yourself. You'll see VTuber stuff quietly hidden into it as of recent as this year. Lol. I don't even know what her IRL name is, lol, so I can't even look. Well, do you promise not to leak it? Lol. Monka? Okay, but what is the big deal about her lying about her degree? Was it like a big... Did she build her career off of it? Like, was it like a big point in her stream? And this part is crazy. I don't even know what her IRL name is, lol, so I can't even look. Well, do you promise not to leak it? Yikes. And we know what happened next. Yeah, and they're supposed to be close friends. I mean, Adora allegedly saw stapled on her fridge like her finance and everything. Radia at no point consented to the sharing of her IRL information or socials to others, especially to those outside of the situation entirely. Yeah, I feel like usually, you know, VTubers don't really brand their IRL stuff to their streaming unless they're like voice actors or I don't know, Legal Mindset. Like if we found out Legal Mindset had lied about his lawyer degree, it'd be like kind of shocking. But if like I don't know, I found out I found out Filian didn't actually study. I don't know, I'm just making shit up. I don't even think she ever talked about her studies. She actually didn't have a degree in biology, and she dropped out and said, I'd be like, okay, I don't give a shit. Anyway, let's go to Annie Marchi's statement. I want to make it clear that from the outset of this situation a few months ago, I made it abundantly clear to all parties concerned that I wanted no part of this entire fiasco in any capacity. In fact, I was completely oblivious to any wrongdoing on the parts of everyone involved. Prior to me being notified, and quite frankly, it should have remained that way. I had no idea what was going on, and I had no desire to know. However, the fact that I'm now publicly involved and openly partisan is a testament to both the severity of the situation and a vindication of Radia's position. So my involvement in this drama began immediately after Adora submitted her demands, seemingly on behalf of Project STEM, to Radia as outlined in the associated documents. I received a Discord call at something like 4 a.m. Australian time from Adora, who informed me about the developing situation and the escalating conflict between Radia and the rest of Project STEM. Now I want to make it clear here, I'm on friendly terms with every member of this VTuber group, at least I hope so. So this came as something of a shock given I had no warning or inclination this was happening. All of a sudden at 4 a.m. I'm being told that a dear friend of mine and the romantic partner of one of my best mates, Digi, is apparently engaged in defrauding her audience by begging for money due to her various medical conditions while simultaneously undermining the lives and personal relationships of the other members of Project STEM. Now, to be fair to Adora, which given the circumstance seems ridiculous, yet context is vital, I've known Radia for a while now and I've heard more about her personal life than most people have, with the exception of the aforementioned individuals involved in this scandal. For the sake of her privacy, I will not divulge specifics, but suffice to say her medical issues and personal traumas are very real. Experiences which have resulted in serious issues regarding her neurological ability to socialize. There aren't enough letters in the alphabet to provide an acronym for the amount of HDs and TISM she possesses, layered upon a physical wreck of a frail constitution. The upshot of this being that when Radia is finally comfortable with someone and able to open up, her scientific and analytical mind gives her a tendency to be hyper self-conscious while simultaneously being exceedingly direct. She has said publicly on stream that the reason she got into streaming as a VTuber was to have an anonymous identity where she could meet people and improve her social skills without having to worry about the constraints of her real life. So when Adora said that Radia had been insensitive, spoken out of turn, or shared information and opinions that hurt both her and the people around her, I had no reason to not believe her. I considered Adora a very close personal friend, and I wanted to believe that if such a thing were happening, she wouldn't lie or exaggerate. However, I also suspected that while these concerns of Adora's were legitimate, I got the feeling that Radia had simply not been told about any of these issues prior to the point of it blowing up in her face, and that Radia was simply being open and honest about her thoughts and feelings, which had been misinterpreted as hostility or outright malicious social maneuvering. I mentioned this to Adora, and she told me that it had been a constant, ongoing issue that was coming to a head with the support of the other members of Project STEM. As such, I spoke to my friend Pomato Master, who corroborated Adora's story, but at the same time, she admitted that she was not exactly happy about the way Adora was going about it, expressing concerns that there was mean girl bullshit going on. Yeah, I think there was. And I started to have a sneaking suspicion that all was not as it seemed, but at the time I said to everyone I was going to embrace the skills of my Swiss German ancestors and embrace neutrality on top of my own little mountain and avoid it all. So I sat on my own and waited it out, watching things unfold while making a pointed effort not to get involved. Regardless of what happened, I was resolved to stay friends with everyone because as far as I was concerned, this was mean girls bullshit and everyone was acting like immature children who just needed to sit down and hammer out their differences. I personally must admit I didn't believe Adora's accusation against Radia regards using her medical condition to raise money. She had been open with her audience about her physical health, and I was on the stream where she supposedly did it, and it didn't come off that way at all. However, like with all neutral nations in time of conflicts, eventually circumstances are going to bring the war to you whether you like it or not. And in my case, it was the attempt by Adora to undermine Radia's relationship with Digi. I guess that's the thing that tipped him over. Now forgive me, but I have a confession of my own to make. I'm perhaps the most stereotypical man there is. If there is an entry for toxic masculine stereotype, you'll find my picture there. At this point, I was happy to remain neutral because I wanted nothing to do with the drama. Even involving my friends, I figured they were adults and could sort things out themselves. Okay, just a side tangent, but everybody in this document yaps too much. When you do a Google document, first of all, some of the stuff in this document I would have placed in different order. Like the medical stuff needs to go way before because we're tackling issues about our medical condition, but we're only gonna get the explanation at the end. And we needed some of the stuff needed to be clearer and needs to be more like fact focused and less about war metaphors and analogy and beautiful words. There's a lot of beautiful words and beautiful metaphors in the Google document, but I'm not reading a novel. I'll read like Dostoevsky for that. The words I used at the time were, they're big girls, they can handle it all on their own. However, an attack on one of the boys is another thing entirely, so I started talking to DG to find out the extent of what was going on, only to be met with a completely different story from what Adora told me. I wanted to insert that in here. Yeah, there's a lot of repetition. Like all of that, basically all of this is just to say that when Adora tried to undermine Radia's relationship with Digital Vagrant, that's when he took an issue with it. But I don't need to know why, because he's that type of guy, because this is his bro, blah, blah. I don't need to know all that. Document isn't about you. This naturally led to alarm bells going off, so finally I decided to sit down and speak to Radia, who again gave a completely different story. It just makes it harder for me because I feel like I gotta skim through to find like the actual information. Like this is actually information that I want. He's being told one story from Adora, and then he goes speak to Radia, who has a completely different story. So that's when he's like, oh shit, something's going on. Because I'm going around asking all of these friends to retell the same situation, and they all have like completely different versions of it. I went around everyone I knew who was at least aware of the situation, and sure enough, their version of events did not match up the version of the story I got from Adora. So everybody's got different stories. Then I decided to feel my way around some of the people who weren't aware of what was going on, only to discover that half the VTuber community apparently knew. Hold up. I was in the wrong half because nobody told me. I have been told by Adora in a voice chat that Project STEM was going to keep the dispute in-house to protect the careers of everyone involved. They stressed they didn't want to hurt Radia and wanted her to improve herself and come back like a concerned friend staging an intervention. Only for me to find out that Adora had essentially spread the information about the ongoing drama to half of her friends and several very large creators. Well, I can't name names. There were at least 2 creators who are considered globally famous in the VTuber space who actively begun asking questions about Radia to senior figures in the community, including sponsors, to find out what was going on because they'd heard the rumors. So I began asking around my friends and chasing up the rumors only to once again get a completely different story from each one. I even found out she had been doing similar things to a number of other creators whom she supposedly considered friends, and that several of my friends had essentially been bullied out of her communal space by Adora for various reasons that I knew to be complete and utter nonsense. However, for their privacy, I shall not elaborate. I wish he'd showed some of these... I hope that some of these friends have been bullied out end up speaking out. It now became obvious what was happening. Adora was very intentionally spreading rumors and slandering Radia, making all kinds of accusations, and then customizing the story to achieve the maximum effect depending on the person she was talking to. She had framed her story as ethical concern to me because she knows my left-wing political views would make me sympathetic to her cause. She changed the story to one about betrayal when talking to her girlfriends. She changed it to one of business concern when talking to her professional acquaintances. And in every single case, she edited the information to remove any wrongdoing or mishandling of the situation on her part. The severity with which she pursued it, the threats and aggressive moves she made while doing it, the attempt to spread slanderous rumors to every corner of the community could only mean one thing. Adora was intentionally attempting to destroy Radia's career. And the more she said, and the more she did, the more obvious it became she had no interest in reaching an amicable or acceptable conclusion to the situation. Thus, I was asked to act as a go-between, to do some reconnaissance, and find out what was going on because Adora and I were still on good terms at this stage, so I decided to go incognito and very carefully ask her what was going on, saying that I had heard a bunch of conflicting stuff and I was worried that it could hurt all of my friends, which was definitely me being very polite. I gave her every single courtesy and handled it delicately. I desperately wanted the entire affair to be resolved peacefully and efficiently to everyone's satisfaction without risking the livelihood of the people involved. This is where the screenshots of my conversation came from. She spun the entire thing as though she was a master politician, accused Digi of being a misogynist, for pointing out that the members of Project STEM were being rather aggressive towards Radia with the wording of the document and the manner in which it was delivered, only to tell me, I actually realized afterwards you didn't need to be involved and I'm sorry for mentioning it. Perhaps realizing she'd made a mistake involving me, which she had. I'm hoping that's the case because I was intending on staying friends with everyone. Anyway, I consider you all a very close friend, which is why I just really want to fix this, yada yada. Radia can be an insensitive, arrogant, and oblivious to people's feelings as well as rude and uncaring, but she seems perfectly willing to apologize, at least from what she said to me. I don't know, man, everyone's upset and angry, it's not good vibes. With the lies, I realized while just sort of reflecting, or at the very least gaslighting, it would be difficult for me to continue to be friends with her and is admittedly mostly in her court in that regard. But I don't know if you could do anything to fix that. I'm not going to speak on what the lies are since I generally don't want to bias you in this regard. She did reach out to Palm and Femme, not me, but I also told her to give me a break, distance for a bit so I can be upset about that. So I figure when we do talk again, it can hopefully end well and be a road to healing. I hope so too, because the stuff I heard was all very hostile from everyone on both sides. No one seems to be able to communicate peacefully, blah blah blah, set up an actual plan for peace, the way it resolves itself one way or another. I just hope that it can be resolved happily rather than in a disaster, because I don't want you or any of the people involved in this shit show to get hurt any more than it is. Adora says, I will say, I do generally believe it was not hostile at all on our side, and DG is heavily biased due to dealing with Ray's crash out over like a week. Trust me, we approached as gently as we could without literally babying. Oh, 100% of course he's biased. We all know that and aren't mad at him for that, mostly just him doing a misogyny on Palm, as the same screenshot we saw earlier. After this interaction, alright, we're like more than halfway through the document. We're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. After this interaction, we decided we needed help, so DJ and I coordinated with Laserpig to act as a neutral party to confirm our suspicion. I mean, they're all friends of the boyfriend though, so they're not like completely neutral, but they are friends with the entire group, so I guess they are a good mediator. What do you guys think about that? As evidenced by his earlier statement, he did confirm our suspicions. The rest of the story you can find in the other parts of the document, as from that point onwards, I very intentionally avoided speaking to Adora or hanging out in her server, choosing instead to help Radia recover. An outcome that, should it have come to pass, would have been devastating loss to the world and a shameful indictment on behavior which has become distressingly common in the VTuber community, behavior perpetrated by vindictive, spiteful individuals. But what hurts me the most is that Adora was a close friend and a member of my international trade union. To me, it always appeared that she used her platform to elevate and collaborate with other creators. We are stronger together, not apart. We don't have to tear each other down. We can march forward as one, inspiring our colleagues to greater achievement. Yet Adora and others like her, most famously a certain infernal canine. Oh, is that a Cinder Ref? Lol. Do nothing except tear each other down, projecting their insecurities and inferiority complex on people who trusted them to have their back. Adora's actions are not just immoral, they are betrayal of both the personal and professional trust of everyone around her, and in doing so has brought shame not only on her but on myself as well. She was a friend and a fellow comrade who I supported without questioning the situation until it was almost too late. Okay. I'm just gonna skip the stuff that's getting repetitive or that's not providing any additional evidence onto the bunny allegations, okay? I feel like you guys won't have a problem with that. Party Demoness statement. On June 4th, Adora approached me to inform me that her friendship with Radia was coming to an end. I requested for no further details on the subject matter as I'd been hurt many times in this space at this point, and Adora knew and addressed that. She still decided to tell me the vague version of things anyway, despite me previously stated desire to not know. I expressed that I believed that they'd be able to work this out as they're both adults. This resulted in Adora giving me more vague information that painted Ray in a bad light. This didn't sit right in my mind, as they just had Anime North not that long ago and everything seemed fine. In fact, everyone sounded like they had a good time. I was confused about it and decided to not dig too deeply into it. I wasn't the first time I had friend butt heads over something and make up, so I left it as I just entered my own IRL problems and I'd become quite distracted from the entire thing. Ray didn't want to drag anyone into this, but was being forced to at this point. I did not know how deep this went until I was told about Ray's attempted suicide. I was filled in that this had been going on for a good while now. I was shown screenshots of Adora's behavior. I do not condone actions that endanger my friend in general. In this moment, I did not almost lose a friend, but I almost lost someone who I considered to be one of my own family. I would not have lost a friend that night, I would have lost a sister. In brief, Adora was lying directly to Radia's face regarding her intention as early as June 3rd to 4th. The below screenshots are from less than 24 hours apart. And by breaks, I mean a break from us putting content as part of our friendship. I don't want to stop being your friend. So Adora's saying that to Radia. And then to Minerva, she's saying, I will say, my friendship with Radia is most likely coming to a close, and I will remain cordial in my mutual space with her. I also know this situation cannot be fixed, and that's okay. Damn. Legit two-faced. Minerva responds, fuck, that sucks. And she's like, unfortunately, I cannot trust her anymore. Minerva's like, I won't prod or pry about it. And Adora's like, I don't have the spoons or energy to dig through all the lies I've lived, so I'm unfortunately done. That's all in the end. If you ever want to tell me what it is exactly about, I'll gladly will, but it's also an issue ultimately between me and her. It's not my business at the end of the day. I will not cause any problem in your space though, because you have been too kind, so do not worry there. There's no sides here. I appreciate the reassurance as well, because this stuff gets messy. It's been a worry of mine for a bit because I don't want my fallouts with a person to inflict on those close to me. But thank you for making me feel comfortable enough to at least say this much. Of course. You've had to deal with a lot in this place, and Lord knows you need less messes, not more. So, I apologize at least on my end for not recognizing this issue between me and her sooner, but I generally cannot be her friend anymore, and that sucks, but I'll mourn this and move on and be strong, and I support those I love like Fan. I will not be pursuing extra info because, yeah, it's been rough from my past experience, but I also note that despite everything, both of you are adults. And then Adora's like, lol. Minerva's like told her 3 times she doesn't want more information, then Adora just starts telling her more information. So Minerva's like, yo, I don't want to know anything about this. You guys can figure out, you're both adults, you'll figure it out. And Adora's like, bet, but actually this is what she did. She's already talked poorly about me on stream through veiled passive aggressive stuff, so I wish she was min. And God, I hope she is, because I feel sick just thinking about the lies she's told me. And I've just swallowed, and I don't think anything can heal it. I even reached out to her about a very small one, and she instead blamed me for her mental spiral for a week and basically tried to guilt me for her spiraling at her boyfriend for a week as my fault. I just can't anymore. So in the end, I just hope for a polite distance and leave it there. I'm sorry, I wish I could give proper words to like comfort or advise, but ultimately this, as you're keenly aware, a lot. She hurt me and that's okay, I can just move on. I think you can, it'll just take time. It is. Appreciate you, Min. Oh, this is a comment by Radia that she added. So Radia says, Adora states that she wanted polite distance. She never even made that possible via actions solely of her own accord, and ensured her time was dedicated to brutally and systematically destroying my life. It was less than 48 hours later that she elected to dox me and provide my personal identifying information to an individual who prefers to remain anonymous. It's incredibly evident that Adora was and always has been lying about how she could move on. So 48 hours after this conversation, that's when Adora doxed Radia to that other person. What the actual F? Discord harassment. During the course of Radia's attempts to move on, she discovered that any attempt to speak about what had happened in anything resembling a public fashion would be met with retaliation. Adora announced a hiatus during June, apparently due to poor mental health and needing to be a better person to those around me. Radia assumed it was about her, or about, it may have included her poor treatment, and saw this as an opportune time to quote question on why she was no longer streaming with Adora. So she makes like a short statement at the end of the stream and a ping to her streaming announcement role in her Discord, attempting to explain her separation from Adora without appearing as if there was any drama to dig into. So she says, for those who are not present, this is the written statement from today. Good evening, folks. I'm sure there's been some relative curiosity as to why I've not been present on Adora's stream, nor she on mine. As outlined by her hiatus announcement, she is taking a period of mental and self-restoration spurred on by a negative mental space, which caused her to do and say things that she regrets. I will not be detailing actions taken, as I'm in the business of sharing information that should ultimately be kept private. The past month has left me deeply saddened by the circumstance and actions taken, while in the immediate and foreseeable future I will be continuing to embark on my own path in regard to my friendship with Adora. I only express my deepest sympathies and support. While we could grow to nurture that bond, the future is uncertain, but it is certain that for now it's best that we move on our paths. So because of this, Adora gets really angry at her. And apparently she got a DM and there was a ping in her own Discord too. Hi everyone, I've noticed some speculation around my current hiatus, so I want to gently clarify. This break is something I chose for my own mental wellness and personal reflection. It's not related to anyone else or any external situation. Out of respect for myself at this moment, I won't be speaking further on it, and I appreciate your understanding, kindness, and continued support. And then here's the DM she sent her. She says, so since there is now a public statement, I'm going to say this again. Our situation has nothing to do with this hiatus. Do not speak on my behalf. You have no actual idea why I took this hiatus because you have not been speaking with me for almost 2 weeks. My communication lines remain open as well. She seems really pissed about that. And Radia responds, you do what's best for you. I'm happy to hear you're getting the help you need. And Adora just responds, that's great, but once again, do not speak on my behalf publicly. She's pissed. True. Worth mentioning that both of them had a large overlap in their communities, hence the statement being made after the split. Later that day, Radia was informed that fellow streamer and friend of Adora, Alicia X-Life, had pinged her entire Discord to disparage Radia for her comments in an immature and accusatory fashion. Note, it's unknown if Alicia is aware of the extent of Adora's campaign and the depth of her deception. So, Alicia makes the announcement in her server saying, hey folks, I was made aware of a bullshit statement by Radia about Adora. I want to say it is bullshit. Adora is taking a break because her and I had an amazing heart-to-heart about life and growth. This didn't involve Radia. I don't know why she's making it about herself, lol. You all know I don't fuck with Radia after she pressured you guys to donate to her and got mad that someone mentioned supporting me. Now this is just getting weird as fuck. Here is her random ass statement she made in her community. Adora is completely fine. This was a decision she made after a heart-to-heart with me. Don't know why other mofos acting like weird. Anyways, Adora will be returning, of course. Just gonna be recording Logan solo while she's on break. Much love, rats. Yeah, well, we know who Alicia is. So this is Radia's like comments on this part, and then we can maybe take a look at what Alicia says on Twitter about this. At the time of her Discord announcement, it was unknown to me how large her Discord community was. Yeah, 18,000 Discord members. It's a lot. I'm a busy woman and not in the habit of occupying numerous Discord, so I never took it upon myself to look, let alone join. This public tweet was put out on July 31st, with her Discord statement being in early July. Suffice to say, her Discord at the time was 17,000 plus member. Putting forth such a statement was not only incredibly reckless, but also willfully engaging in behavior that could endanger my safety. With such a large and dedicated audience who trust you as a creator, engaging in this behavior is irresponsible to the highest degree. Alicia's statement is an incredibly false representation of a situation that did occur on the day of the project's Steam debut and a full-on lie about pressuring her community to donate to me. I will fully admit that I did eventually become short with one of her community members that had decided to pop into my chat, who was only identifiable as a supposed community member by them referencing a rat queen. After they had repeated the same message 5 to 6 times, after being told politely the first time it was not a problem that I couldn't sub as the content is inherently free, but this individual took it upon themselves to keep proclaiming over and over, despite assurance that it did not matter, that they were sorry they couldn't sub as they gave all their money to their rat queen, Alicia. In the past, Alicia was kind enough to pay for 2 video edits for both me and Adora from my new former editor, which I was immensely grateful for and expressed my appreciation, but at no point did I request her community to do anything for me, and at no point did I request anything other than the thumbnail tips she did graciously offer, as well as provide an edit for one of my videos in which she is credited as the thumbnail creator in the description, and for which I appreciate and still do despite this attack on my person. I made it a purpose to not overly involve myself in a deep friendship with Alicia after seeing how heavily it was something Adora was pursuing and desperately heralded as a fantastic new addition to her life. I historically know better than to get in the way of what Adora wants, be it people or anything else. Ooh, that last sentence gave me shivers. That's crazy. She's like describing Adora as being this like Machiavellian figure, almost like a queen bee. So Alicia actually responded to this part of the document. So she says, wait, so you getting mad at one chat message saying, sorry I'd sub, but I gifted the rat queen? You literally said, do you think I feel sorry for you? Apparently she told the chatter, do you think I feel sorry for you? The chatter said, this is the context of you saying you love when the community supports your friends. Bro had the perfect context to say that, and you still shit on him out of jealousy. No one convinced me to turn on you or anything dramatic. I was literally me thinking that's gross ass behavior and I don't want to be around that. Also, for the Discord announcement part, Adora was taking a hiatus after her and I had an amazing heart-to-heart with 4 other friends. Someone else, Palm, screenshotted your Discord server post and was confused because I told my community that I had talked to Adora. So I clarified it to my community because there was no reason for you to lie. But you did. So I just corrected it to what actually happened. It ain't that deep, bro. Don't lie. And then I don't have to correct anything. It's that simple. TLDR, you were moving weird to my community about money. You lied about someone's hiatus reasoning, so I corrected what actually happened. Also, she cut out her response. She acknowledged and said that's understandable, Lamau, so you knew it was wrong when you shat on my community member. Oh, yeah, this is this part. So in the Google Doc, there's this screenshot where Alicia basically sends a message to cut ties with Radia, but it doesn't really show the actual reason why she's cutting tie with her. Because in the message it says, hey Radia, I wanted to keep this short and simple. I don't really feel comfortable being friends with you after the way you spoke to my community member on stream. I understand that you are who you are and I respect that. So rather than asking for change, I'm going to quietly dip out. Whatever goes on between you and the other is y'all's business. I just have boundaries when it comes to my friendship and community and wish to uphold that. Well, actually, the screenshot doesn't showcase much more. It just adds Radia's response. That is entirely understandable and I respect that. Alicia says, wishing you all the best. I'll be removing you from the Kirby server. Wanted to let you know directly rather than being shady about it. I appreciate that. Thank you for your directness on the matter. But what's Laserpig is in the reply, okay? And basically, him and Alicia are arguing on whether that troll that was in Radia's stream, how far he pushed it. Laserpig is saying that that user repeated it 7 times. So, of course, Radia was gonna ban him. Because, you know, it's poor streaming etiquette to always refer to another VTuber. Especially saying something like, I'd give you money, but I already gave it to, you know, this person several times. But Alicia says, no, it was one single guy. It was just one guy, and then she got upset about it. But none of them have the clip or the proof. So he says, if someone came to your live stream and said, I'd give you money, but I already gave to the pig 7 times, you probably ban that person too. I know because I've seen you do it. And she's like, I don't know you, lol. You aren't my friend, so yeah, little bro. But my community knows I get hyped for my friends. When one of my top gifters gave 20 to Key and mentioned it in my chat, I said, let's go. That's crazy. What you said just makes no sense. Let me repeat it in a simpler language for you. The user being mentioned posted they were donating to another streamer on Radia's stream 7 times. They were clearly trying to get a rise out of her, and it sadly worked. Yikes, show clip, because it was said once. Come on, man, lock in. You clearly didn't even see the VOD. So you haven't seen it. So let me get this straight. We're talking about Adora bullying Radia to the point where they almost committed suicide, and you're more concerned with the actions of a random troll that you don't even know if it even happened or not. I don't know. I'll be waiting on that clip. Furthermore, Adora used this situation as an opportunity to resume smearing Radia to other individuals, casting herself as the victim and the one being reasonable. We're at page 63, guys. It's moving forward. I definitely do not think I can forward with D&D at this time with Radia involved. She refuses to respond to my messages while also making public statements on my behalf on reasons why I took a hiatus. I took the hiatus because my fucking house was a disaster and my hygiene was bad, and my depression was making me act rash and badly towards everyone. I haven't talked to her in weeks, and I chose the hiatus for myself, so I'm going to be the bigger person and step away. The message received by Radia was extremely clear at this point. Any sign of perceived defiance or attempt to speak publicly on what happened would be met with immediate and disproportionate punishment. Whatever guilt Adora had publicly stated, Radia was apparently not part of it. This is an addendum of an anonymous account, and some names have been redacted. The main thing I can say is this. That conversation was a week after I was on her stream, and only weeks after she had recently referred to me as a close friend. Yet, when a bigger streamer went to attack my character and credibility by telling a lie that Adora knows for a fact is a lie, she chose to leave me to the woes of her bigger, more successful friend. Despite constant claims of telling me she was actively trying to be a better person, she dropped me the moment her bigger friends went after me. Friends don't do that or let their friends do that to others. I've learned that at the end of the day, whatever kind words or promises she will make you, at the end of the day, Adora looks out for one person, and that's Adora. Off-Kai harassment. During the course of this campaign, Radia decided to attend Off-Kai. She made travel plans, and before the initiation of hostilities, and she did not want to see them go to waste. It was her intention to avoid straying into the same spaces as any of her former friends and focus on her connections with other friends that she had been forced to distance herself from due to the ongoing stress of the situation. Adora continued her campaign of harassment here. Radia was left feeling completely locked out of social spaces due to Adora's heavy presence and rumor mongering. This culminated in a completely unrelated third-party individual being approached by a known friend of Adora, who had spotted them speaking to Radia, and launched abruptly into cryptically threatening statements about people getting what they deserve, statements that profoundly disturbed them once Radia had walked away. So this is the threat, getting what they deserve? Okay. Corroborating statement. Oh my god, not this DM. When I saw this, I was like, what is this chopped up job? The individual who provided this has also asked that their names be redacted due to fear of retaliation. It's like these, you know when you make like a ransom letter and you cut out a bunch of letters to form words so they can't like recognize your handwriting? This is what is making me this is reminding me of. I was talking to Radia on the last day of the con, and we inadvertently wound in a meeting in the same area Adora was around. Radia excused herself to the bathroom for a sec and left me alone while she was gone. Approached me. We had talked before at other cons, so this was not unusual to casually approach me, but the conversation went from cordial to weirdly intense as she seemed to threaten me in so many words of people will get what's coming to them and reap what they sow, or something to that effect. I feigned ignorance and didn't rise to the veiled threat and simply wrapped up the conversation and wished them well, but the conversation stuck in my mind as distinctly strange. It is after this event that Radia was unexpectedly contacted by Fennery Mori. Over the course of a multiple-hour call, she apologized profusely for her role in the initial intervention. She confirmed that neither her nor Palm had been aware of what she'd been sent to Digi, nor that it had been doctored prior to sending it in a way that placed the majority of her comments focused on the two of them. So I guess this is sort of the proof that Adora did doctor the document. Well, they learned that from one of the other person that was there. She was further instrumental in confirming privately the extent of Adora's duplicity and doxing, providing key info on who to reach out to in an attempt to determine how far things had spread and what lies had been told. Fennery Mori was able to corroborate that Radia was not imagining things. Adora had embarked on an unhinged campaign to undermine Radia's life of her own volition. This so disturbed the other two members of Project Stim that they proceeded to distance themselves from Adora after failing to convince her to stop. We need evidence of this. Do we not have any screenshots of Palm? Damn. Because that would have been strong proof that Adora was engaging in this. Sorry, not Palm, Fennery Mori. Fennery Mori, I wish she provided some screenshots. Them corroborating this with Fennery Mori is big, because this is the proof to them that Adora was lying, that she doctored the document. This is not hearsay. Hearsay is something that you hear like through the grapevine that you can't really show evidence. I am asking them to show evidence to us. They probably saw some. Oh, Palm left a tweet and people called her out in agreeing with bullying Fen. Isn't home yet as far as I'm aware. Okay. Maybe we'll hear more from Fen then, when she comes back. It is also interesting to note that near simultaneously, Radia received the only thing resembling an apology from Adora's side. We have confirmed that this apology was likely spurred on by disruption of Adora's own friendships due to the discovery of her duplicity. Radia was not the only one to receive incredibly belated apology messages at the same time, leaving this a likely case of love bombing, i.e. damage control commonly used by abusers. As far as we are aware, only Adora's victim received messages such as these. She did not contact anyone she had spun lies to, or make any attempt to undo the damage she had caused. The apology in question is below. Hi Ray, I just wanted to say I think I know why everything has happened recently, and it was my fault on the biggest miscommunication of my fucking life. We wrote notes to help us during the intervention call so we could remember to talk about stuff we were concerned about and keep on track. In my stupidity, when DG asked for what happened and Fen told me to send over some bulletin points of what was said, I just sent a poorly edited down version. There's no cancel doc. There never will be one, and we never wanted one, but I can fully see why you saw it that way. I never wrote one for redacted. Why would I wrote one about my best friend? I'm so sorry for my incompetence and all the unnecessary pain it caused. If you want to talk more, we can. Please focus your ire at me, not Palm or Fam. This message is extremely disingenuous. Radia had not attempted to interfere or speak ill of Palm or Fen at all during this, or even spoken to them at all. It claims all of Adora's action to be a misunderstanding, couched the message in more subtle accusation and with zero effort to correct the lies she told, either privately or publicly. Rather than assuage Radia's concern, this put the nail in the coffin of any hope Radia had that Adora had any intention of even trying to correct the damage she had done. Alright, so this is Radia's statement on it, basically saying the same thing. Here's the first few lines. It was never directed at anyone but myself. I tore myself apart mentally for weeks as false accusations were lobbed at me, and I lamented over the possibility of unintentionally hurting friends' feelings over unknown and previously uncommunicated situation. You did not send down a poorly edited version. You deliberately worked to remove mentions of yourself and complaints so that the onus of aggression was wrongfully placed upon both Palm and Fan, while you played the part of a concerned sister. Oh, is that how it was doctored? It was like only the other girls were doing accusations and not her? Even if falsely so, with fabricated accusation with no evidence, this was not a miscommunication in any way, shape, or form. One does not simply dox someone as a miscommunication. You, Adora, elected to slander me to multiple parties, fully knowing what you spread was false. This is behavior you have engaged in for years, taking advantage of my limited ability to be online and creating false narratives that you laid down as truth, coding many of my interactions unknowingly to me in a negative light from the onset. S-side attempt. Cut off from her friends, isolated from her support network, and with the fear of permanent ostracization from one of the few things in her life, Radia's mental health went into a sharp dive. On July 12th, Radia attempted to take her own life. It is only through the action of her roommate and her partner driving through the night and of the crisis hotline that Radia called that she did not succeed. Damn, crisis hotline actually came in clutch here. Yeah, and there is proof of the S-side attempt, which is a pretty big deal. Current state of affairs. This section will attempt to provide a look at what the current state of affairs is, additional relevant information, analysis, and corroborating evidence, as well as a conclusion to draw the document to a close. Radia has in no way managed to recover from her ordeal. She remains in a continued state of mental decline. So even as this document is being written, Radia frequently tries to isolate herself from the collective, which has sought to aid her, and will often lament it would be easier to leave the streaming world behind or to just disappear. So Radia is still struggling with everything. She continues to suffer from a variety of effects, both lingering and recent, and including, but not limited to, returning bouts of S-side ideations due to the ongoing inability to clear her name or even speak her side of the story, ongoing physical symptoms, shortness of breath, recurring fevers, fainting spells, Oh, this is sad. Okay, this point is saying, guys, that because of the extreme stress, it's aggravated her chronic and serious medical condition, and there's a reasonable chance some of the damage done might be permanent. What the hell? Radia continues to struggle with reaching out to her friends and those in her seriously damaged support network, with no idea how far Adora's slander was spread. She fears what others will think of her and that they will no longer wish to speak with her. She's been terrified that people will accuse her or of forcing others to pick sides. Radia was forced to stop most streams for 2 weeks in an attempt to placate Adora's demands for contrition. Not only did this make no difference, but massively slashed her revenue at a time when she had numerous medical bills coming due and had been forced to take an effective pay cut at her day job. Her expenses due to her family she needs to support and her own medical issues are extremely high. This series of events directly endangered her ability to meet those obligations, and her ability to stream has been compromised to this day from sheer stress. Radia's roommate, who she was helping to afford attending college, was forced to move out and make alternate arrangements due to the severe hits that Radia's income took during this time, and Radia was forced to delay re-entry into college classes to further her education. This resulted in the irreversible loss of nearly $10,000 in educational assist funds from her employer. And she continues to live in fear of Adora restarting her campaign. Early signs of abuse. During the compilation of this document, Radia found the courage to begin examining her past interaction with Adora, and she realized there's been, early signs of abuse. This is directly from Radia. Requesting separation from artist. In the weeks before departing for anime, this is kind of like Adora hogging some artists. In the weeks before departing for anime, I was asked by Adora to jump into a call with her to discuss a nagging matter. To preface this, the call was not recorded, and these are the only screenshots I can provide to prove that the call occurred on the date of May 5th, mere weeks before Anime North, and B, showed that I attempted to provide her additional resources to aid with obtaining other art pieces from thumbnails to videos in her price range, as that was part of her central issue. During the course of this call, I was asked if I could step back from commissioning a thumbnail artist we shared, and still do, who goes by QB. Adora asked that due to QB's workload delaying thumbnail delivery, if I would step back from QB as she cannot handle both thumbnail workload and you, Radia, can afford an artist that is a higher price range. At the time, I agreed without fighting because I had zero interest in making this a point of contention, and due to QB's workload, I was looking into other options. However, the continual assumptions that because I have whatever amount of more money than Adora that I must step back shows a pattern of behavior. Understand I am grateful for the artists Adora has shown me and shared with me, such as Kiko and Mikami Michael. Without Kiko, I would not have my model. However, asking me to step back from an artist under the reasoning that I could afford the extra hit and that this was a small thing she was asking in return for showing me various artists is not behavior I believe most friends would engage in. And yeah, I agree. This is fucking shitty behavior. You shouldn't do that. In an effort to reciprocate that generosity, I provided artists from various purposes that were within reasonable price range, and I hope she could utilize them in the future. Though the conversation she told me, I was afraid you were going to take this poorly, and I'm happy you understand. I try my best to understand and exhibit compassion, but leveraging my higher earning as an argument did not sit well with me. However, I complied as I always do. Medical issues. I will state that I'm incredibly uncomfortable about diving into the severity of my physical issues. It's both incredibly embarrassing and shameful. My gastrointestinal system does not function without the assistance of various medication and enzymes. My ability to eat solid food is, in fact, entirely dependent on access to this medication. The motility in my intestines has degraded year by year, with the onset of issues first noticed in about 2018. Initially, these issues caused me to suffer from minor bouts of constipation, which I thought little of when the issue first begun. By 2019, my condition had devolved into consistent vomiting, nausea, waste buildup, and repeated bowel obstructions, which required numerous hospital visits to clear the obstruction from my intestines. The process for attempting to clear a lower bowel obstruction is a smog. It is an embarrassing procedure and one I do not personally wish to describe beyond comparisons. I will only offer that you imagine the shame you would feel if multiple people circled around you as you were awake during a colonoscopy. Oh god. Except you needed to void yourself immediately in the center of a room. Not even a bathroom, because you never make it there. You have no control over your body at that moment. It is utterly humiliating. In the present day, I have the ingredients for smogs kept at my home to help reduce the burden and embarrassment that an ER visit for the specific issue brings. Due to the high cost of going to the ER or being hospitalized, this is my first line of home defense against the bowel impaction and resolving them myself. To describe what a smog is, it is an enema that is in equal part sorbitol solution, magnesium hydroxide suspension, mineral oil, and glycerin solution. Below are most of the items needed to make a smog. What is not pictured is magnesium hydroxide. I used my last bottle recently. Sorbitol also used. And the bag this all gets mixed into and the tubes required for this treatment. Smog components here. Before I continue, please understand that revealing this much of my intimate daily routine, specifically my gastrointestinal routine along with other aspects of my care, particularly at-home support methods, is incredibly embarrassing. I would detail my entire medical history if it was truly what would have ever satisfied Adora, but we would be here for hundreds of pages and an unsatisfied Adora would remain, so that is a pointless endeavor for all parties. But to resume the detailing of this specific suite of issues, I continue on. 2019 was the last year I was able to utilize my intestines without the assistance of a massive medication regime. As the years progressed, my condition had degraded considerably. I now required a cocktail of medication to artificially recreate gut mobility so that I can move solid food through my system. This comes with immense risks, such as, but not limited to, critically low electrolyte levels each day, dehydration, fatigue, bloody stools, nausea and vomiting, multiple bowel movements, totaling on average over a dozen daily. This is a great burden on social level as well, not just medical, as it requires constant restroom visits when my medication began to work. Oh, Dora made an announcement in her Discord server. I'll be working on this over the next week. It's a lot. I want to give context on all the conversation. In the end, I will be saying my part and then going back to the engineering field after I do, most likely. I don't want to leave without saying everything I can. Wait, she's leaving content creation? My creative passion for this gone. I have bills I need to pay, and content full-time was already looking to end over the next few months as is. My friend online already know this, and anyone looking for this, no. Now I'm going to be walking away regardless of the public response I'm given to my experience. That's a big red flag, yeah. When you're in a controversy, the last thing you want to do is disappear, because people will just, even if it was already planned, which, you know, might be true, people will just take it as, yeah, as her running away, and she won't be here to defend herself further. But I mean, we'll see her defense. I fully accepted these risks and was judiciously informed by my team of physicians about these risks and what I could do to help ease the burden of them upon my life. For me, these risks and struggles are far more appealing and less detrimental to my life than having to undergo a colostomy, which would create an opening in my stomach. Wow, really? Known as stoma, which would waste from empty from. To read, there is no shame in having undergo a colostomy, especially if it's the right choice for you as a patient. The choices are different for each individual. And for where I'm in my life, the thought of having a bag attached to my body would be incredibly difficult to deal with mentally. Oh my god, yes it would be. Keeping up the illusion of being a healthy individual, at least on a physical level, is something I will admit is important to me. And the pain I suffer in my medication regime is worth it for a small bit of normalcy in my human experience. Okay, we don't need to read all of that. I mean, I believe her that she has like severe medical issues. She's showing here all of the medication she's taken, like it's so much. It's so much. And she takes numerous medication, immunosuppressant, antibiotics, hormones, pain medication, Plaquenil. It's, oh my god. She's dealing with so much. And she's also fighting another bout of pancreatitis. She's prefacing the section here on her lupus, neurological issues stemming from lupus that heavily affect my CNS along with other medical issues. Jesus Christ. And it's not even a complete diagnosis list. There's more. So she offers part of her diagnosis list in an easy to read and understandable format, along with some blood tests in the later half. I feel like she shouldn't have to show this. She shouldn't have to show this. Everybody deserves some medical privacy. Like, I feel terrible that she has to do this. Yeah, I mean, when you're getting accused of faking health issues, it puts you on the spot, but I've rarely seen creators actually provide like proof or medical proof of these health issues. It's just something that sucks being accused of. Okay, I think we get the point. I mean, I believe her on the health issues side. And there's too many big words. And she's like here debating where she should have included blood tests. I think we're good. And she says, you know, she has so many medication because she's been exposed to radioactive materials in samples through prior employment. This is a long and arduous road to travel. My most comprehensive care has only even started to be served to me within the last 16 months as I moved to the West Coast for improved medical care and support, which I lacked in the South of the United States. What is required to live life in a way I find comfortable is, to put it simply, a lot. I would not wish this on anyone. Juggling a complicated medical situation is another job on its own right, from treatment to seeking legal pathways for justice and compensation, from advocating for oneself and dealing with mounting costs of care as conditions progress, along with missed opportunities, to simply navigating the hellscape that is the American medical system. And these bills, and you know what, this makes a lot of sense why she's worried about her finances, even though the other girls were like, oh, you shouldn't complain because you make so much more money. But it's like, it's relative to your spendings, and clearly this girl has way more spendings than they do. Yeah, no, it's terrible. It's a lot. It is vital to note that Radia has at no point attempted to spread this beyond an extremely small selection of very close friends that she was using for mental support, and even then it has been a difficult and exhausting experience in getting Radia to fully open up about what has been going on. We do not understand what actions Radia has done to deserve this, and what was expected of her to fix this and to retain her friendship, her streaming, and all the achievements she has worked so hard for. Her alleged wrongdoings, as far as can be determined, extends mainly to her difficulty managing her anxiety and her unwillingness to fully divulge her personal details or medical history to Adora, out of concern that her details would be shared without her permission. Well, since Adora has shared her real name, I'm sure that could have happened too. That's a real possibility. Adora's version of events changed with each retelling and each person who has asked her. Yes, Radia has no point attempted to dissuade people from being friends with Adora, nor has she ever instructed anyone close to her to attack Adora, either publicly or privately. This has been confirmed by nearly every person we have spoken with during the compilation of this document. She has just tried to de-escalate the situation and keep the rift private. Adora, however, has not provided the same consideration. Furthermore, Adora has continued to actively feign innocence to any outside party who have attempted to determine what is going on and attempt to mediate. She's actively changed her tone. Okay, we already know about this. We don't need the recap. We just read this. Adora has faced little to no consequence for her action and absolutely no public repercussion for the torment she inflicted. Alright, tell me this is new information. Final phone call. Due to the concerns of some third parties who desperately hoped that this could be resolved amicably, Radia, against her better judgment, agreed to a phone call with Adora on July 30th. Again, Laserpig chose to step in as an arbiter, a neutral third-party voice to manage what they assumed was going to be a very emotional, fraught conversation. Oh, okay. So this phone call was kind of described in Laserpig's testimony earlier, but now it's going to be described from like another point of view. It had been Radia's intention to try to negotiate some form of settlement, one that would include accountability and clearing her name while not resorting to placing the situation at the volatile whims of the public internet. She intended to propose that Adora publicly state some of the things she had done on her stream, not social media, and offer an apology, and in return Radia would do the same, issuing a public acceptance of her apology and publicly forgiving her, and asking that they be allowed to go their separate ways. She reasoned that this would be the easiest way to resolve the situation with as little fallout as possible, as staying completely private was not an option, as she had no way of verifying how many people Adora had spoken to, and the rumors had long traveled outside of the initial area. Fair. So, okay, what happened once the call actually starts? What neither Laserpig nor Radia, I said it properly, expected was to be met with a brick wall of a conversation. Adora seemed utterly disinterested in any sort of discussion. Her speech was flat, monotone, and devoid of any sort of emotional reaction to anything. The main phrase that she repeated over and over again like a canned response was, "It was a private matter. I'm ready to bury the hatchet. We both hurt each other. Let's move on and go our separate ways." For over 25 minutes, Laserpig and Radia attempted to get Adora to engage in some sort of dialogue to clarify what Radia had done to hurt her, to explain any of her actions. Adora denied everything, including things in this document has direct proof of. Even Radia revealing that she had attempted suicide provoked no response whatsoever. Adora only answered in a flat, emotionless voice, "I hope you get help." More disturbed and frustrated, Radia and Laserpig elected to leave the call, and it was incredibly clear that no constructive conversation could be had with Adora. Now we're getting to the conclusion. It has become unfortunately more than obvious that this now goes beyond a silly internet drama spat between VTubers. It's now a very real and very dangerous situation, one that nearly ended in tragedy. Going public with this is an unfortunate last resort attempt to halt Adora's grudge. All previous attempts at getting her to de-escalate and correct the record have failed. No amount of contrition, surrendered ground or spaces or attempt at professional parting ways has satisfied her. Her only apology was a naked attempt at avoiding consequences and sandwiched between more lies. There's no justification for the unhinged lengths she has gone to in her attempts to oust Radia. Adora has shown zero remorse, offering no apologies. This all took place during the run-up for the first anniversary of the death of Radia's brother. Jesus! And a traumatic event that Radia personally attests that Adora helped her through by effectively inserting herself as a surrogate sibling, something she has publicly proclaimed numerous times. It is impossible that Adora did not understand the damage she would do to Radia's mental health by doing this, especially at this time. Radia had not compiled any sort of document whatsoever at this point, nor had she attempted to express any kind of ire or hostile action. She consistently stated she merely wanted to be left alone. This document only begun to be pulled together following the S-side attempt, as the situation could not be allowed to go on any longer. It took nearly losing her life and the near inconsolable grief of those close to her at nearly losing her to finally get Radia to be willing to voice what had happened publicly. The classic sign of abused relationship. Adora's life, social status, and reputation with the VTubing community and her career as a content creator have been entirely unaffected and unchallenged. Her hiatus was due to unrelated issues that, to respect her privacy, we shall not dive into any further. While cancelled documents may seem dramatic to some who were aware of the situation, protesting strongly for the moral high ground walk-away option, we remind you again this document is the final straw in a long series of negotiation where Adora was given every opportunity. I mean, it just makes sense because they can't track down who Adora talked to. And I remember I skimmed through this part and I feel like they make that argument too. We'll also remind you that Radia is not the only person Adora has done this to, though we have focused entirely on the situation around Radia. Had we also included the ordeal of just the few victims we are aware of, we could have easily tripled the length of this document. And thank God you didn't, because I would be dead by the end of reading this. There is an account from another victim of Adora's that cannot be made public in this document due to the victim not wanting to be identified. If it features disgusting levels of cruelty, financial exploitation, horrific violations of highly personal information, and emotional manipulation. What has been done to Radia is not a one-off, it's a pattern. Radia has been left mentally scared, come to support, please Adora, please just go away. And then there's a final page and a half ending statement directly from Radia. I think we just read that. So she says, "This is not the sole time I have been treated poorly by Adora. In fact, our entire relationship is littered with her abuse of me for years. Degrading me, framing me in a negative light to those near her, and she had near infinite time to spend around them, while I, readily employed individual with a very busy life, could not be online or around as often. When I state I am incredibly busy, it's not an understatement. I'm someone who, on top of content, maintains a professional full-time corporate job, volunteers with my community and workspace. I manage a household and up until relatively recently was serving as a guardian and fiscal support system for a young, chronically ill adult going to university." Man, and that's on top of all the medical stuff she has to do daily? With my obligations limiting exposure to me, Adora was skillfully able to amplify any minor situation, questions, or small issues for years, painting them to encapsulate all of my personality to various parties. She gaslit me continually, manipulated my own family to unknowingly continue her abuse by proxy, and contributed to a state of severe exhaustion and stress within one of my few social spaces that is not directly work or volunteer work related. Quite frankly, The realities of my personal and professional life are of zero concerns to Adora. I keep my details that are public under my real name incredibly scant and even more limited when speaking in the social media space for the exact reason we see here. Adora has a historic issue with freely sharing personal information of others with non-involved parties. Early on in my friendship, I noticed that behavior and was even warned that she had very loose set of lips. The flippant disregards for personally identifiable information is not only willfully negligent but also callous in nature. Doxing me is not a matter to lol about, Adora. You provided my personal identifying information without my explicit consent to try and prove your own deep neurosis created through your historical actions of being an untrustworthy confidant, which has only been reinforced to me by various outside parties in the VTuber space. The air of caution extended to any of your close company by sheer proxy. The actions you engaged in were reckless in nature with disregard to any risk, and you were fully hoping that revealing my personal identifying information would be used to harm me. You threatened my safety. You harassed and intimidated me, and through your own willfully reckless action, you made me the target of undue attention and further abuse. Bully is too light a word. You are a coward, one of the highest order, a duplicitous snake who takes pleasure in undermining others for your own personal gain. The only kindness you will find from me is my belief in redemption. But for you to achieve redemption in any capacity, there must be a condemnation for your actions. Far too long have many suffered in silence out of sheer fear that you would further destroy their lives, their professional careers, and their dignity. We would like to be free to live without fears. I would like to live without fear. Your promise mean nothing. You eliminated anyone who previously served as a force to perform checks and balance on your behavior. I highly doubt your next enforcer will last long either before you cut the rope. That being said, I fully believe in providing people with chances to improve, but I have exhausted every option beyond full, unbearable silence to continue the long line of content corpses that hold your sins. Silence is not acceptable. There is no burying the hatchet. You ensured that with your own action long ago. I sincerely wish that you can ruminate on your behavior, halt your continual crusade in painting your friends as morally corrupted targets to be taken down, and become a better version of yourself. I hope that, amidst all of that you have friends who will support you and help oversee the regulation of your more malicious behaviors. I do not wish for you to be alone as you selfishly wished for me. I do not wish for you to lose your community, your livelihood, or your dignity. My genuine hope is you take a look at the mirror and recognize what stands there. May you treat those that remain with kindness. I certainly will not be amongst them. Not now, not ever again. Goodbye, Adora. May this be your last encounter. Wow. I haven't been looking at chat for a while. Hey, you! Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that bell button. And I'll see you in the next video.